Today on Homeworthy, we're stepping inside the homes of talented New York City interior designers. First, Christina Salway welcomes us into her charming pre-war Victorian townhouse in Brooklyn, where history and personality shine. Then, we visit the stunning Upper East Side one-bedroom apartment of designer and content creator Lauren Clark, a masterclass in elegance and functionality. Next, in the heart of Soho, we explore the stylish and sophisticated home of interior designer Todd Raymond. Finally, we head to Brooklyn to tour the cleverly designed railroad-style apartment of interior designer Ally Doman. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Christina Salway, and you're joining me in my townhouse in Brooklyn, New York. Come on in. So you come in, and the first thing you see is our front entryway. And I was really driven by function as much as aesthetics in this space. So I always think you need a place to put your stuff down when you walk in. And I have an 11-year-old son, and so I need a place to put shoes immediately, because otherwise, if I don't have a place to put shoes, there will be shoes and bags and stuff everywhere. And this piece I literally found for free on Instagram. Like, someone I followed was making like a template for a table, and she's like, I got this, do you want it? It's free. And I zoomed over to Bushwick to pick it up, and it's the perfect piece. Basically, all of our shoes go in these little cubbies. It's a perfect place to put your stuff down, a perfect place to put your keys. But also, like when I have somebody coming to film, it really dresses up pretty well. And then on this side, major hook storage. Just again, it's all about function in this space, but you still want it to look clean and tidy, and we're getting kind of the best of both worlds. The mirror actually came out of an apartment that I was working on for a client on the Upper West Side. It was this really exquisite apartment that had a huge amount of sort of pre-war details, and my client was sort of trying to shift it towards something a little bit more modern, and she really didn't like this mirror, and I was like, really? Because I really do like this mirror. And so I brought it home and I hung it in my front hallway, and here it now resides. And then the light fixture I actually found on Facebook Marketplace for 40 bucks. And I wanted something that had real presence. You know, this is a really high ceiling, and we have all the pressed tin ceilings throughout the apartment or throughout the house. And I really wanted to sort of draw your eye up so that you really got to see that. And I think that this really achieves that. In our actual little vestibule, so when we bought the house, this is in Greenpoint, and when we bought the house, it had the old school like asphalt shingling on the front, which is really common in Greenpoint. It's like one guy went through Greenpoint in 1960 and sold everybody asphalt shingles. And we actually took the shingles off and restored the original clapboard, and then we reinstalled the original doors. But these aren't our original doors. They're actually architectural salvage, and we found them at a place upstate. There's an incredible salvage place called Hudson Valley Architectural Salvage. So we got these from there, and we brought them back and fitted them. We reinstalled a transom. We opened this transom up. It had been closed up, but we knew that there was a transom back there. So we installed this, installed these, and then this wallpaper is actually vintage wallpaper I found in a house that I was renovating in Maine. It, like literally, they, for whatever reason, the previous owners had like boxes and boxes of old wallpaper, and I pulled it out and I was like, well, this is fantastic. So I figured eventually I'd have a way to use it, and lo and behold, here it is. The floor tile we installed ourselves. This painting I actually lugged back with me from France, which I don't know if you've ever traveled with a painting, but it's like very harrowing. And I had it in a shopping bag, and I just had to carry it on the plane, be like, excuse me, please don't hurt my painting. And then I get it framed when I got back. So that's the sort of, I mean, this was a major transformation, both on the exterior and the interior of this vestibule, because it was really pretty dismal when we got here. When we got here, the entire house was covered in rolls of linoleum. They had put linoleum, layers and layers of linoleum over all of the floors and all the way up the stairs. And everything, all of the moldings, all of the railings, everything was painted like dark, like sticky brown. It was an uncanny texture. So we restored all of the floors, obviously pulled up all the linoleum, refinished the floors, refinished the stairs, and then I stripped this banister myself, which was an absolutely miserable process. I cannot discourage anyone enough from doing it. It's so time consuming. But I will say I'm incredibly happy with the results. So if that's any indication, maybe it was worth it. But it was an unbelievably time consuming process of just layers and layers and layers of paint stripper to get it off, and then sanding. But this is the original newel post. These are the original spindles. And now, I mean, now that it's down to natural, it's really quite beautiful. It's like an incredibly soft, like almost velvety wood. So we're pretty happy with it. These two paintings actually came out of a country house that we owned. This was actually given to me by my mom's best friend. It has a bullet hole in it, which he thought was really a hoot. And this guy is just this incredibly somber portrait. I have a couple of these. I call them my ancestors. They are not my ancestors, but I have these sort of like very somber paintings of evidently very affluent men and women who do not belong to me. And then moving on, this leads right into the living room. And it's funny, like a lot of people, I think when they renovate these townhomes, tend to open this up and make it all into one big open plan. And a couple of friends, when they came over, they were like, is that the plan? Are you gonna make this into one big floor? And I just was like, absolutely not. Like, this is a Victorian home. It was built in the 1850s. I really wanted to honor what it was. And also, it's got all of this like extraordinary architectural detail. It's got this sensational multi-phase molding. It's got all of this multi-phase crown molding. I mean, this is the stuff you pine for when you think about a pre-war building in New York City. And the idea of getting rid of that in the name of a sort of like open floor plan, which is totally unappealing to me. And ultimately, I think the way that we live here, it really works. Like, I really like that there is a sense of an entryway. I like that the living room is its own space. I like that the dining room is its own space. I think for our like sort of lifestyle, it works really well. This living room is highly, highly functional in that there's an enormous amount of seating. It's incredibly comfortable. There is a television hidden behind that painting, which everybody jokes about because they can't believe I hid a television behind a painting. It's kind of a jack of all trades in that it's like incredibly comfortable, and you can sit here. I mean, we sit here as a family and we watch movies all the time, but we also, 2 nights ago, we had a whole bunch of people over and we all sat in here and like drank cocktails, and it really, it's really able to do double duty that way, which I really love. And I think about that when I'm designing for clients as well as for myself, is I really want something to be, I want it to have versatility. I want it to be both incredibly comfortable, but still perform aesthetically when you have your like fanciest friends over. And I think like trying to find the balance there. Basically, I mean, you're gonna find this when I do this house tour. Almost everything in this house has a story, so you just have to like pick your poison. All of the fireplaces in the house are original. They were covered in like layers and layers of paint. Again, we stripped all of these ourselves. A miserable process, excellent results. Over here we have this wild collection of like weird and wonderful carved wooden things. I think I'm really attracted to both the kind of the architecture and the texture of these. It's like they're adding dimension without adding noise, which I'm really interested in. I like to play around with that a lot. The tiger rug is something I acquired when I was in France. I was at a flea market in France and this guy was selling this tiger rug. I was actually at a food market and I was walking along. I was like meant to be buying strawberries and I was like, what is that tiger rug? And I brought it home, and my original intention was to lay it on the floor of the vestibule, but everybody kept tripping over his tail, and I was like, this is not sustainable. So either someone's gonna get hurt or the tail's gonna get hurt. And so I decided just to use it as a wall hanging, and I really love it up there, to be honest. I have a whole collection of these antique stairs, these miniature stairs. I'm interested in these sort of like odd architectural elements. I think they're curious, and I think there's something really fun about creating a sort of collection that feels very curated and thoughtful, but also a little atypical. I obviously also don't mind a little whimsy. I think my son stuck this eye patch on there, and I was like, that seems good. So that's that. These guys were Facebook Marketplace finds. I think they were maybe $200 for the pair, and then I had them reupholstered. And again, they're just like weird, and they're like almost like a little, there's something like a little comical about them, but I thought they were really beautiful and interesting. I'm very attracted to like a little odd, I think. And so I think that kind of a lot of this articulates that. Over here, this is what John and I call our divorce couch. I bought this, I think I actually bought this on Craigslist when Craigslist was still really a thing. And we picked it up from a loft in Dumbo and put it on top of our Volvo, which is not what you're meant to do when you're moving a large couch. And we brought it back to our old apartment. And I had measured really fastidiously to make sure it would fit in the elevator and that it would fit through the door. And I had not accounted for this one turn it had to make to get into our door, and we couldn't get it in. So then we took it down the elevator and tried to take it through the hallway of the lower apartment and up the stairs, and we got it stuck in the downstairs hallway, like stuck. Couldn't get it, we couldn't move it left, right, up, down, got stuck in someone else's hallway, which is not a cool thing to do in New York City, and had to call the sofa doctor, and he had to take it apart completely and bring it up into our apartment and put it back together. And then when we moved out of that apartment, I had to take it apart again and have it put back together on the street. And John was like, I'm pretty sure that whatever you saved by buying this on Craigslist, you have now spent on sofa doctors. But it was the absolute closest we've ever gotten to divorce is when we got that couch stuck in that hallway. He was like, that's it, I'm done with you. Anyway, here we are now, so I guess we persevered. And then ultimately, I now have had this couch for, I think about 12 years. And at some point, the leather seats started to break down. And so I had them recovered with this mohair, and I did this little green piping. And again, it's like these little fun details, right? Like, I think I'm a big believer in buying used furniture that is of good quality and then reupholstering it and giving it another life. And one of the great things about doing that is at the same time, it gives you the opportunity to make something feel really custom rather than kind of big box, which is like such a great hack, really. This whole setup is actually inherited from John's grandmother, and it's like, again, I think I like the idea of this home feeling sort of like a Victorian cabinet of curiosities. I think I sort of always have this sort of fantasy that our house is gonna feel like, like some Victorian explorer has like gone around the world collecting things, and this is his accumulated stash. And that's like kind of what I'm channeling whenever I'm decorating. And so when she died, she left this, and I was like, I absolutely want that. So that's like another little piece. Okay, I'm gonna show you. You're not allowed to make fun of me for this though, but this is where our TV is. And it's on a little cleat, and it just hangs there. And then when we're done, we just put it back on the cleat, and it's gone. And like everybody I know is like, I can't believe you take that painting down every time you watch TV, but we don't really watch that much TV, and I just really couldn't stand the idea of having a television just like staring me in the face all the time. So that's what we opted for. This guy, obviously you want to know about this guy, come on. This is like the most sensational chair ever. I bought it at an auction at Doyle's, which is on the Upper East Side. And it's funny, like, you know, I've bid on things in auction before, but this piece, I like saw it in their catalog and I was like, oh my God, I need that. And I went and it was, I don't know if you've ever done an auction. It's so stressful and you're sitting there with your little paddle and you feel like you're gonna have a heart attack. And I just was like bidding and bidding and bidding, and then I won it, and I think it's possibly my favorite piece of furniture. I just think it's outrageous. It's upholstered in Pierre Frey, which is a really great textile maker. And I just think it's preposterous. Look at this thing. One of my friends says it has good acoustics, which I think is like always the sign of a good piece of furniture. The only things that we bought new in this house are basically these two chandeliers, the bed linens, and the dishes and glasses, I think. And towels, I guess. But almost everything else is like vintage, antique. It's from Facebook Marketplace. It's from yard sales. I really love to collect. But the light fixtures, these two light fixtures, both in the living room and the dining room, are both brand new. And I wanted to, I didn't want to get like trapped in the pre-war aesthetic so much that it felt like I was creating a museum. I really wanted to create a juxtaposition of new and old. And I think this really sort of achieved that. It's, I think it's fun, it's interesting, it's architectural, but it also doesn't feel overly precious or overly serious. And I think that's sort of something I continually in the house try to achieve, is that balance between, sort of like beautiful design and, really intentional design, but also not like overly serious. I want it to be accessible. I want it to be fun. I want it to feel like you're allowed to live here. So one of my favorite details about the dining room are the pocket doors. These are original. They were here, and they were totally painted over. The glass was completely painted over. So we had them dipped. You could actually, we took them out totally, and we sent them to a place in New Jersey where they dip them and strip all of the paint off of them, and then we reinstalled them. And again, like these are these architectural details that are original to the house. They're really classic pre-war design details. And like this is the stuff that when you buy a townhouse, these are the gems you're looking for. And it's interesting too, even just functionally, like as I said, as a family, the way we move through this house, like sometimes we'll have a dining room full of adults in here and a living room full of kids in here, and the kids can all sit in here and watch TV, and we can close these doors and the adults can all sit in here and eat, and like we can live in perfect harmony. And that kind of layout works incredibly well for our family. I mean, obviously, again, to each their own, but like the way that we live, having these separate spaces is really functional for us. The dining room is sort of this interior room, and it doesn't get a tremendous amount of light. It only has this one window. And I decided, rather than try and sort of like pedal against that and make it white, and sort of, often when white doesn't get enough light, it really reads gray. And I really did not want this to be a gray room. And so I decided just to lean in and do a color with some real saturation. And this is Farrow & Ball's blue-green. And I think it's a really successful color. It feels like really rich, it feels really saturated, but it's not sort of overwhelmingly dark. I think it just feels like kind of moody and rich. Of course, everything in here also has a story. I'm sorry. The dining room table and chairs were bought on Facebook Marketplace. I had never seen a chair with this design. I mean, they've got like pegs for the seats. I mean, they're really curious. It's an antique set. And it actually came with a huge hutch, which we now use in our pantry. So I'll show that to you later. As you come into the room, we've got this incredible chandelier. This is one of my favorite pieces. This came from Soho Home. And I just think, again, like much like the light fixture in the living room, it's like a real showstopper, but it's also not overly serious. It's not overly formal. I think it brings a little of the like kind of modern funk to the room. I didn't want this to accidentally become like just a Victorian farmhouse. I really wanted to kind of pull that tension a little more. So I think that really achieves that light fixture does. The huge mirror, this is like a Victorian gilt mirror, and this actually came out of my husband's bar. He used to own a bar in East Williamsburg, and when we sold it, they bought the entire everything, lock, stock, and barrel, except the mirror. I said, the mirror does not stay. And so we brought the mirror here. And as soon as it landed here, it was like, oh, it should always have been here. These are my other ancestors. Also not my ancestors. These actually came from a client of mine, like one of my very favorite clients, and she had them hanging in her home for like a decade. And we were working on her home and we were doing these renovations, and she looked at me and she's like, you know, I am so sick of those people looking at me. And I was like, well, I am not. I will totally have them look at me. And so I brought them here, and here they sit. So this is a seltzer faucet. It has cold water that's filtered and then carbonated water. And I've never been so hydrated in my life. It's like an absolute delight. And it runs through a filtration system, so it's cold. It's like the greatest gift. It's insane. Also, it's like a great way to wow people when they come over for dinner. We were like, would you like flat or sparkling? And they're like, what is this, a restaurant? Over here, this whole array, this whole vignette, all of these are antique or vintage Hager pottery, largely Hager pottery. And they actually, most of them, like all of the little pieces, came from our wedding. So when we had our wedding, instead of having like a formal florist do our flowers, I collected all of these different like sort of matte white pottery vessels, and my mom's really good friend did all of the floral arrangements for us, and they were on all of the tables. And at the end of the wedding, I then collected them all back together. I actually gave a bunch to people because I had so much white pottery at that point, and I kept some of my favorite pieces and then kind of made a vignette of them all together, which is sort of, it's sweet. It's like a really lovely, like everyday reminder of our wedding, which is pretty lovely. The rug is from Cherish. It's one of their reed rugs, and the thing that's really incredible about these rugs is they come in set sizes, but you can also order additional squares and you can stitch them on. So you can totally customize the size, which is sheer genius. Like, I've not seen anybody else do that with a rug, and as a designer, like the number of times you deal with these rooms that just want a rug that isn't 8 by 10 or 9 by 12, but like 8 by 8 or 6 by 7, it's not every room's a rectangle. And the idea that you can like stitch on these extra squares is just like, why haven't we been doing this? It's such a good idea. We host a lot. John is a really avid cook. To be honest, I'm really more of a baker, but John is a really avid cook. So we probably host dinner parties like 2 or 3 times a month. So this space like does like major sort of heavy lifting in that respect. But also as a family, we just sit here, we sit here for dinner. We really sit in there for breakfast, but we sit in here for dinner almost every evening. The flowers are just, I have like these little guys, the little yellow puffs. I have like such a soft spot for them. And these, I believe, are like some kind of yellow orchid. And again, like I love to have, you can see throughout the house, I have like plants, I have flowers all the time. I just think, again, it adds like sort of a layer of like sort of humanity to a home, right? It really feels like we live here, and it gives a sense of like warmth and vibrancy. And sometimes I think instead of having stuff, having plants goes a long way. So the kitchen was one of our biggest renovations. This room was actually a bedroom when we got here. I think historically it had been a kitchen, but the people who were living here before us were using it as a bedroom. So there was none of this in here anymore. And so we basically totally overhauled the kitchen. We installed the backsplash, we installed the cabinets, we installed the stove, we installed the sink. The sink actually came from a kitchen that was upstairs that now is a bedroom. And this we actually had from our house in Maine, and we brought it down with us. And the cabinets, I actually had a cabinet maker that I work with in New York. They're called Express Millworking. And I gave them one of the doors from the pantry cabinet, and I asked them to match that because I really wanted these to feel as much like they were sort of part of sort of original to the house. I really wanted the whole kitchen to feel like it was always here, and was sort of trying to channel that sort of sense of a kind of Victorian kitchen scullery sensibility, which is also why I ran the tile all the way up. The tin ceilings are original. The mantelpiece is original. And then we kind of added everything else. The tile, you know, John jokes that I've been like in my like green phase for about 5 years. I found this tile at Complete Tile and it just blew my socks off. And I think I just wanted to kind of go big or go home. And so we ran it all the way up the walls. We put this in ourselves. And then for us, my feeling was this is a really limited amount of space. There wasn't a huge amount of sort of optionality there. It's like kind of this is it because we have windows on this side and the pantry behind. And so the conclusion was dishwasher, stove. We have this one cabinet that goes into the corner. So it gives us a fair amount of storage. But the real reason this all works is because of the pot rack. So much of our cooking stuff is hanging here. And I think that like kind of liberates the need for that much more below counter storage. And then interestingly, like this is really it, which is fascinating. You know, I think people often, when they're designing kitchens and they're thinking about kitchens, it's like so much cabinetry, so much storage, but you know, this is it. I mean, we can host a dinner party for 8 and have like 4 courses based on what's sitting here. And, you know, we don't really need much more than that. So that's kind of the gist of the kitchen. It's sort of high efficiency, but also, you know, with an eye to being as sort of beautiful as possible without compromising function. As I said, John is a really enthusiastic cook. And so kind of no decision could be made that was only about being beautiful. It had to work as well. And that's really the way this is laid out. Like even just having these 2 spaces flanking the stove, having this as an additional workspace, like we really made use of every single inch of this kitchen. So the sink is like a great example of sort of being both aesthetically pleasing and highly functional. And that obviously it's bringing a lot to the kitchen in terms of what it looks like, but also it's this incredibly deep basin. It's got this integrated drain board. So it really is, it's like kind of doing everything, right? It's bringing it aesthetically, but also really, really like very efficient. So the island is actually a freestanding piece of furniture. It's just, I think it's probably like a dining room console, but we couldn't have like a conventional island in here. There's not enough width in the room. You wouldn't be able to pass by stools. And so what I decided to do was get a much sort of narrower piece of furniture and top it with the same stone, with the same profile as the rest of the counters, and then flank it with stools. And that way it's sort of doing the same function as a kitchen island, but taking up literally half the footprint of a conventional island. And I mean, the amount of time that we end up, it's very funny, but the amount of time we end up sitting in here, like 6 adults while John is cooking and I'm like leaning against the sink or I'm like sous chefing, and everybody just ends up in this room rather than the rest of the house is unbelievably frequent. And it's one of these things that's, you know, we could have just had like a little round table, like a little breakfast table, but there's something about this that again, really is both about function and aesthetic in that John can use it as a work surface when he's cooking every day. We can use it as a social space when we have friends over. We can sit here and have breakfast. It's, you know, it's really doing all the things. And I think that's such a great sort of takeaway when you're thinking about design is how can I make every single choice as like versatile, as functional, as beautiful as possible? Like, can I hit all of those notes? I mean, it's funny, like often I feel like my aesthetic for myself is very different than what I do for my clients. I'm not a really dogmatic designer, and I tend to design for the client rather than sort of bringing my signature to them. Whereas in my own home, I think I'm really conscious about how I balance sort of quiet and noise. And that's how I describe it, quiet and noise. Like, I like the idea of the sort of box being a little bit more serene, and then there being these like kind of punches of color or punches of sound. And I think it sort of creates a good balance so that it doesn't feel overwhelming. I don't want to come into a house and just feel like everything is coming at me. I like the idea of there being sort of moments of peacefulness and then elements that are interesting. And so in the dining room, I kind of inverted that, where the walls are a little more bold and the furniture is a little bit more mellow. In the living room, the walls are very quiet and the furniture is a little bit more bold, and kind of like tipping those scales back and forth so that you feel like you can move sort of serenely through a space and don't feel overwhelmed or underwhelmed. This was another, like maybe it was also a kitchen or something. There was a little sink back here, and we moved this enormous piece of furniture into this room, which is kind of counterintuitive, right? Because it's a tiny room and it's a huge piece of furniture, but it has so much storage. So we have all of our like sort of small appliances, our like food processor, our blender, all of that stuff all goes in here. The microwave is here, the toaster is here, all the ugly stuff that happens in a kitchen, it's all back here, which is great because it doesn't mean we've compromised function, but we also have been able to sort of retain the aesthetic of the kitchen. And then as you go deeper, we've got wine racks, we've got all of our food storage. So it's still like all of the function is still here, but we've really managed to strike the balance between beauty and function. This is one of the things that's so tricky, right? Because the fireplace is here, this room was separated into two and it was pretty non-negotiable. So what we opted to do is really make the most of this tiny space by making it high function. And so we brought in this gigantic piece of furniture that has all of these drawers and all of these cabinets, and then just built the rest of it out in order to maximize the amount of storage we could get in here. I'm gonna take you upstairs and show you the bedrooms now. This is a cute piece with a cute story. John and I were in Portugal when we were, I don't know, like 20. We were so young, we were kids. And this play was being performed in Porto, and I loved the poster so much. And I wrote to the guy and I was like, I really love the poster. Is there any way to buy one of the posters? And like 2 weeks later, a package arrived in the mail and he had sent me one of the actual like street posters. And if you look at it, you can still see like the folds in it, because he had taken one of the big street signs and literally folded it up and put it in the mail for me, which I thought was like unbelievably adorable because he did not know me from Adam. And then a friend of mine, for a wedding present, made us this big frame for it. And here it hangs. Now we're on the second floor, and this is where two of the bedrooms are and the bathroom. This is our bathroom. It is adorable. This is called a coffin tub. I don't know if you've ever heard of one of these, but it basically is wood clad. It's got a copper lining. It's really deep. It is literally the best shower I've ever had, which is funny. The shower head is from Amazon, so sorry Waterworks, but this is amazing. And everything about it is just an absolute joy. There's something about standing on the copper. It's like very soft underfoot, and it holds the temperature of the water in a really nice way. It's just an absolute pleasure. The floor tile is from Floor and Decor. It's like cheap and cheerful. This chair I literally found on the street. It was at the end of someone's driveway, and then I had it recovered in Rogers and Goffigan fabric. This is actually the shower curtain my mom made for me. It's a textile from, it was a bed sheet from Piglet in Bed, and I just had my mom is like a much better seamstress than I am, and she made me the shower curtain. The wall tiles from Urban Archaeology, and they actually have, although maybe this is like a trade secret, they have like a surplus warehouse, and you can write to them and they'll send you like a totally unintelligible list of everything they have in stock. And I just went like through it line by line until I found a tile that I liked that they had enough of, and then I literally drove to Queens and picked it up. The sink is an antique. It actually also, I'm like, I sound like a pack rat. It also came out of a client's house when we were gutting her bathroom. she wanted a vanity, and I was like, well, I don't, and I stuck it in my car. So here it is, but this is an antique, came out of the Upper West Side. And then the door is actually original to the house and was totally painted over, so you couldn't see the pattern at all. And originally it was actually hanging upstairs in my son's bathroom, and I stole it and brought it down here and turned it into a pocket door. So my son sleeps upstairs, so for the most part, John and I are just down here alone. But I'm not going to tell you this is like a normal setup. I'm pretty sure this wouldn't work for everybody. But so what we did is we set up these doors. These are actually, they're antique. I think I found them on Facebook Marketplace. And the reason I did this is I didn't want to kill all of the natural light in this hallway. And so the idea of having these be solid just felt like it was just going to make this hallway feel so dark and so bleak. So for the most part, these are just open, but we do also have curtains. So like when we have friends over and they sleep over in the guest room, we can actually close the curtains. But this isn't the only way into this room. There's also a door over there because at some point, I guess you entered from that side. I don't know. I mean, the opening was here when we got here. There were like weird louvered doors. So this room, our primary bedroom, so we changed the louvered doors. There was like a closet that was built in here that we removed. We stripped this fireplace as well. There was magenta pink wall-to-wall carpet in here, which is a choice. It was really a shocking color of pink. And as a testimony to its quality, it had really retained its color. It was bright pink. Again, every single thing in this room has a story. So the painting above the bed, I got at a flea market in Paris. So everybody goes to like the very fancy flea market in Paris that's in the north of Paris. I do not go there because it's the very fancy flea market in Paris. There's another market that's in the south. It's the Porte de Vanves, and it's like this like real street, like a real street fair of a flea market, and it's like a quarter of the price of everything else, but there are really great finds to be had, but you just have to be willing to sort of like fight for it a little more. So I bought this there and was truly just a rolled up canvas, and I carried it with me home and then got it framed. But if you look at it, you can sort of see that it's just a canvas like mounted onto board because it was so deteriorated they couldn't wrap it. Everything else in here has a story. I bought the chair at Brimfield. Look at this is the tiniest chair. It was the first thing I saw when I drove up, and I was like, what is that itty bitty chair? Obviously, I need to bring that home. The sconces are from Serena and Lily. This is one of the things, this room is tricky. I mean, if you think about it, there are 1, 2, 3 doors in this room and windows on the other wall. There's like, and a fireplace. It's like there's almost nowhere to put a bed. So we put the bed here, and then I knew I wanted to have sconces, so we still had reading lamps. Then I was like, obviously I need to get a pair of ceramic elephants as nightstands. It's the only obvious choice. And I happened to find a pair at an antique store. There's a great antique store called the Berkshire Gallery. It's in Great Barrington, upstate. And I walked upon these and I was like, well, that's it. These are definitely what I'm looking for. The bed is literally a bed from, I think from Wayfair, maybe it was from Amazon, and I had it reupholstered. So I basically just used the frame and then had it reupholstered, and the fabric is a cravat fabric. The bed linen is from Piglet and Bed. I work with them a lot, and I love their products. I love the texture of everything, and I love all the gingham. I really kind of feel like you can't have enough gingham in your life. I just feel like it's like so cheerful and so joyful. So you'll see that a lot in our house. I really layer in a lot of gingham. The rug is an antique, I think like kind of Art Deco Chinese rug. It's silk. Facebook Marketplace, obviously. The light fixture is a dupe. It's very similar to I think they're like Pele ball chandeliers, but this is a dupe from Vault. Which I absolutely love, and I'm really sorry I bought a dupe, but I did it. And the drapes, these are these like funny like design hacks. The drapes are from H&M. Who knew? But like the drapes are from H&M, and they're like charming. They have this little like ochre trim. They've got this sweet little like sort of ruching at the top, and they feel like really intentional and really chosen, and they were really inexpensive. So it's interesting, there are like different websites you can look where you'd never really expect that you could get home goods, but like H&M, Zara, like these places you'd never really expect to look for home goods, and they can be a great hack to buy things that are a little less expensive and still add like a nice layer to your house. When I walked into our townhouse, I mean, it was absolutely brimming with someone else's stuff. The former occupants had lived here for 80 years, and they were like 3 generations all living in the house. But everything was really intact still. Like, all of the fireplaces were here, all of the moldings were here, the crown moldings, the huge baseboards, all of these really beautiful details that are really hard to synthesize were here. And in some respects, like, all of the other stuff that needed to be like tweaked and repaired and put back together, that's work I can do. But like creating, incredible carved, ornate crown moldings, that is just absolutely beyond my skill set. And so finding something where those details were intact felt like such a gem. By the time you find a house in New York City, it's already been like gutted by someone who had like a really enthusiastic love affair with Home Depot tile. And like, I didn't want that. I didn't want to buy something that somebody had already like whitewashed or like gray washed and turned into something modern. That's not what I was looking for. I wanted something I could really put my own stamp on. And this was just totally untouched. So we built this entire wall of cabinets, and it's basically, I wanted it to look like it was paneling, but it's actually storage. So at the end, we have the laundry cabinet, and we have like a built-in laundry. You want to get in there? Now you really are looking at my dirty laundry. And then the next one over is a linen cupboard. And then the next one over is like all coats and suitcases. And then what we did, so these are literally just doors from IKEA. And we had we bought 7 doors from IKEA. And then we worked with this incredibly talented carpenter who mimicked the same style up above and then mounted them all on sort of hidden hinges so that when they were all closed, they looked like they were essentially like a continuous wall of paneling. But again, these are like these funny hacks, right? Like this is just IKEA, and then we just made it look a lot more intentional, and then we painted it so it feels like it's specific to this space. These are both vintage pieces. I picked them up in Mexico City when I was in Mexico City. This is a totally crazy piece of art that came from like an outsider art festival in San Francisco. It's literally painted on a roller shade. And then this is our guest room, which is cute. If you live in New York City and you have a guest room, you're basically running a hotel. So it's like good to have like a nice, functional, welcoming guest room. They've got their own bathroom. Like I swear, like once a week we've got somebody sleeping in here. It's like, it's a blessing and a curse, but it's a pretty neat thing to be able to have friends and family be able to pop in. And then let's go upstairs. Now we're upstairs. This is my son's little powder room. And we added this sink. I think I like found this sink. I like found it at a yard sale for $10 or something, like honestly like 15 years ago. And I just have been like carrying it from house to house being like, one day, green sink. And we got here and this bathroom only had a toilet and no sink. So we had the plumbing run and put in and it was like, well, that's exactly what is meant to be here because there's 1 inch on either side of this wall. And then I painted the walls to match the sink. And then all the wallpaper is actually a collection of French costume drawings that came out of, this is a ridiculous story. I was on the Upper East Side and I was driving along and there was a junk luggers van and I saw these guys like throwing these boxes of like beautiful prints into this junk luggers van. So I like screeched to a halt and I jumped out and I was like, wait, what are you doing? And the guys looked at me like I was totally nuts. And I was like, wait, I'll take them. And I begged them to pull the prints out of the back of the truck. and they gave me like boxes of these prints. And if you look at them really closely, they're like hand painted. They're absolutely gorgeous. So I came home and I was like, well, now what? Like, what's the game plan? Now I've got these like hundreds of these prints. And I decided that I was going to basically sort of install them like wallpaper. So I just Mod Podged them up, and it's just page after page, and I just sort of set them up as a grid. And now they're wallpaper. And also I still have like hundreds of them. So if anybody needs any, I've got a bunch. And then this little guy is just a little magnet. Look at, he's like a little solar light. Isn't he cute? And then you can like pop him off and charge him. What a charmer. This is my son's room. You should know it's never this clean. It's literally only because you guys are here. Usually it's like basically carpeted in Lego. But this room, you know, I mean, I think a lot of designers struggle with this with their kids, because I want it to be his room and I want it to be emblematic of him, and I want him to feel like ownership of it and feel comfortable in it. But I also don't want it to be like covered. Like if he had his way, he would have like a otters in space blanket or something. Like it would be not what I'm doing. And so I think we tried to like kind of find a balance between like Godzilla and Bob's Burgers and gingham and lovely patterns and colors. And so he chose the paint color. He was like, I want gold trim. He agreed to the blue ceiling. He was into that. That wasn't of his, that was my idea, but he was into it. We've got all of these poster frames. So these also came from H&M, and they're absolutely genius. They're magnetic. And that way, like he swapped them out as he's like gotten older. He's like changed them for different things. But again, it's like one of these things, like if he had his druthers, they would just be like on the wall with like push pins. But just by having them in these little magnet frames, it makes them feel like a little more intentional, a little more chosen, a little less teenage boy. So that's the scoop. Again, this fireplace, we also stripped back. It was covered in like 10,000 coats of paint. This room was the room that was honestly the most intact in the house. Like all of the ceiling, the molding, everything was really in really good shape. So it was really just about like painting and kind of just bringing it back to life, which is pretty great. And then the other thing that's really cool about his room is he's got this little space that he calls his studio. And it's like just another little nook. And he has a green screen that he sometimes sets up, and he does like little stop motion animation. And he has a desk in here, and it's like his own little kind of reading room. And then I put up this wallpaper. This came from, I think it might be from Sonneman. And you know, it's just like fun and playful, and he was really into it. And it picks up a lot of like the kind of the greens and blues from the rest of the house. So it just felt like kind of a great splash. Like I can't imagine putting it in a big room, but it's really perfect in this little space. The curtains come from IKEA. But again, they're like dynamite. They're blackout. They're like, the color is great. The pattern is great. It works really well in the room. So that's the scoop. Like one of the incredible things about having a townhouse is having outdoor space. Like in New York City, that is one of the most coveted commodities, is having outdoor space. So come see ours. It's not big, but it's mighty. So when we got here, it was really a jungle. It's a little bit of a jungle right now because we're like in the height of the summer, but it was like a jungle, like completely overgrown. And we installed the stone patio, and I've just got things like growing as they go, but it's pretty enchanted. I really wanted it to feel like sort of a secret garden. I wanted to have some privacy, but all of this stuff is stuff that we planted in the last 2 years, and it's just like growing gangbusters, which is pretty crazy. We planted this cherry tree. We've got string lights. Our neighbors have grapes growing over the wires, so they grow up all over the summer. It's a pretty enchanted space. And to be able to like sit out here and barbecue and hang out with friends at night feels like just magical. It's funny, I joke about this with the whole house. It sort of feels like it's a country house in the city. And this, I think even more so. It really feels like you're in your own magic garden, even though, you know, you're surrounded by 8 million other people. So I think what makes a house a home is, in my opinion anyway, I think it needs to be sort of demonstrative of who lives there. And I think our house is like really a collection of our stories. I mean, as I said, every single piece has a story. Every single piece came from a different place. So much of it's come from our travels as a family or as a couple. And it's really like this sort of lovely accumulation of our lives all in a nutshell, right? It's like, this is all the things we've done up until this point. And I think there's something about that, like you walk into our house and you get a real clear understanding of who we are as people and who we are as a family. And that's the difference between a house and a home.
Hi, Homeworthy, I'm Lauren Clark, and welcome to my New York City apartment. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy, I'm Lauren Clark. Welcome to my one-bedroom apartment on the Upper East Side. I am from New Jersey originally, and I work in interior design now, and I love to do all things home. I always have, so I kind of do all sorts of renter-friendly hacks and tricks in my Upper East Side apartment, and I love to show people how you can make a rental feel like a home. I love the energy of New York. I know that's a cliche, and I specifically love the Upper East Side because it feels like a cozy little neighborhood in the middle of Manhattan, and we've got parks on both sides of our apartment, so we've got water and just like openness, which makes the Upper East Side feel just so peaceful and so different than the hustle and bustle of Manhattan. It was 2022, my boyfriend and I were looking to move in together. I was home in Maryland and he was in Long Island. So we had waited to find a place that kind of ticked all of our boxes, natural light being the #1. We gave up some things, so we gave up a dishwasher, laundry, that sort of thing, but we said natural light trumps all. So it's funny because he actually saw the apartment and we weren't able to FaceTime because people were living here at the time. So he was basically like, it looks good, it looks like it does online, we'll make it our own. And I was like, okay, I trust you, and we signed it. So I saw it when we moved in. And it was pretty much a blank canvas. It had good bones, it had exposed brick. It just had a good feel to it. And we loved the neighborhood and we went for it. Welcome to my entryway in our small one-bedroom New York City apartment. I wanted to make sure that even though it's a small space, all the spaces felt fun and pretty and aesthetic and also designed. And I wanted everything to have a function. In a small space, you don't have a lot of wiggle room on storage and sort of doing things just because. So in our entryway, I wanted to make sure I had a spot where I could stand in front of the mirror before work, kind of grab whatever I need, place to drop my keys, but I also wanted it to feel like a nice spot when I come home from work. It just feel pretty kind of always. I love to use faux florals. These are faux snowball hydrangeas because they are no maintenance and they always look pretty, and I wanted something to fill this space here. I needed a cabinet that was budget and also had storage. So I love this one I got from Wayfair. It's got these turned legs, and I thought that was a nice touch. I just stacked some books here. I've got some matches. This is a little silver bowl that I got from a thrift store in Virginia. And I love to pick up pieces wherever I can because I love to look back and be like, oh, that was fun. That was such a fun day when I did that. I grabbed a bunch of unique pieces, and now every time I sort of look at it, it's like a nice little treat. And I love to collect matches. That's a free hack. Most places in New York and really everywhere, there are all sorts of matchboxes you can get, and they've got all different colors and designs or whatever. It's the restaurant, but I always think that's fun to sort of look back and be like, oh, I forgot I did that, or I went to this place. Or you can also just buy some that have pretty designs, and I love to just throw them in to a little bowl or a little tray, and it just adds some color and flair. Next part of our entryway, I wanted to have a little coat hanging moment without having a big hefty coat rack. So my favorite hack is taking out pages out of coffee table books. So I love to go to a thrift store, buy an art coffee table book. You can kind of poke through them and see if there's pieces in there that you might be able to turn into art, and that is just like the best way to make a bunch of art for not a lot of money. So both of these pieces are actually from a coffee table book that I thrifted on the Upper East Side. This is a vintage frame. I think this is a frame from Home Goods. And I wanted to just put a little blue and a little green here as sort of like an introduction to the rest of the apartment. This is actually a bag from my grandma. This is a hat that my boyfriend got at a rodeo. I wanted it to just feel pretty, but also functional. So adding art into a space like this is just the best way to kind of make it feel cozy, and it doesn't feel so sterile. I also wanted this moment when you walk in to not feel so crazy. So like, I'm not hanging my reusable Target bag out here. There is shoved in my closet, you can't see, but I've got some pretty neutrals out here. I love to sort of lean into like the straw and the leather and then the deep brown, because all of these at the end of the day are neutrals. And I think if all your neutrals are the same color, it feels flat. But layering different materials and different colors and different kind of saturations really make it feel kind of like a moment. So when I walk in, this to me feels styled, but it's also so functional. So this is a funny little moment here. It typically collects random returns and things like that. So instead of having an extra chair that would just pile up with things, as we all know how that goes, I always have frames that I'm interchanging art with. So sometimes I'll get sick of something and I'm like, all right, I really want to change that out. So I kind of always keep these IKEA frames and I rotate things. Honestly, this is craft paper that I painted with white watercolor, so it's nothing fancy, but it kind of makes this corner feel intentional without feeling cluttered. So that way it's not an empty space, but it's also not like a pit for collecting things. And I kind of like the leaning, it feels a little casual. With our rugs in our apartment, everything is super durable. This is from Wayfair, it's the Laloy line. And I think they're both actually Amber Interiors collaboration with them. They're super thin, super durable. They're polypropylene, so it's very like, something spills on this, no biggie. And again, nothing in our apartment is so precious. I don't want to live that way. I didn't want it to be like a white rug when you walk in and you're tracking dirt and then you're like, oh my God, it's ruined. So I love that these colors kind of camouflage anything. And they're super easy to keep clean, and they just add a little bit of warmth. I love neutrals and blues and greens, but I also think if you just stick with those colors, it feels a bit showroomy. So I actually introduce a little bit of this blush and a little bit of gray and a little bit of like pink and mauve, which also carries into our living room rug. Come take a look at our living room. So in our living room, this is sort of, I don't know, the nth iteration of it. When we first moved in, I had a lot of like different bright colors of coffee table books and cookbooks and just different things. And it was almost just too overstimulating. But when we first moved in, we've lived here now 2.5 years. So we've sort of curated it into be what it is now. But when we first started, it was just a blank space. And I love that we had the brick wall. And from there, it's really gone through a bunch of different versions of itself. And we finally landed on, I actually just added my little desk in this corner here because it felt like a fun little moment to put some extra art. And it's super practical for work from home days in front of a window. But I think that like throughout the few years of living here, I've picked up different pieces from thrift stores, and I've gone up to Hudson or Cold Spring or wherever and just pick up fun little pieces that are sentimental. And I think that adding in a bunch of those and accumulating things like books over time really sort of make it feel like the space it is now. And there are pieces in here that I look at them and I'm like, oh, that sparks joy, and I love to look at them. Which is why I think I share so much of this room, because there are so many things going on, but it doesn't feel like a headache. And I think that's the great thing with playing with neutrals, is you can have a lot of things and you can layer a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it doesn't feel overstimulating, which is in my first iteration, that's how it felt. It felt like I had reds and blues and greens, but super saturated, and then like a yellow vase and you know, an orange picture frame. And I was just like, oh my God, there's so much happening. In our space, the first thing we purchased for our apartment was this IKEA sofa. We have a really small hallways outside. They're super narrow. So we needed a sofa that we'd be able to assemble inside. So I actually purchased this in Maryland and brought it on a U-Haul up to this apartment. It was the first thing we had here. And we didn't want to go with something so light. I really pushed for like a white or a really light cream, but my boyfriend was like, that's just not practical. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, I really have to fight him on this. And it ended up being great because it is just, a lot of people I think are shocked that not shocked, but a lot of people are like, oh, it's so nice to see someone with a dark sofa, because so many apartments that people see nowadays are super white and bright and clean and have white or cream sofas. So I kind of like that this is a little bit more unexpected maybe, but I lightened it up with our pillows. So I love to save everywhere pretty much where I can. So all of our pillows are a combination of Amazon and HomeGoods. And I love, my favorite tip is to switch out the inserts. So those two big pillows, and I love big pillows. I don't like the look of teeny tiny pillows on a big blank space because I feel like it's such a missed opportunity. And I love stripes, as you can tell, but I love neutrals with a little bit of other color infused. So I love the wide stripe paired with the smaller stripe paired with the blue, and then on this side the same but with the green. I don't think you can ever go wrong with a stripe and a floral combo, so this is like exactly what's happening here. But all of these are items that we've saved on. I mean, our sofa's IKEA, our sconces here are Amazon. This frame above our art is one of my other DIY hacks. So I bought this big frame at a thrift store, and it had this ugly kind of piece of art in it, which is not a problem. I wanted it for the size of the frame because buying big art is super pricey. So I went down to Mood, the fabric store, and I picked up this really pretty piece of gray and navy fabric, and I made it into a piece of art. So this whole area was kind of the foundation of our apartment. The pillows, when we first moved in, I had bright pillows. I had pinks and I had oranges because I love those colors just in life. But in my home, I didn't want to feel overstimulated when you come out of the crazy city. So I think that sticking with neutrals is the best way to make a space feel calm without feeling boring by infusing different colors and patterns with it. Our coffee table is another budget find. It's from Target. In my opinion, it looks like $1 million, and I just wanted a light wood. I didn't want to introduce any other materials. I like the look of the wood paired with the dark charcoal sofa, but what I did do is layer in fun pieces. So things are super practical, but also super pretty. So like this, for example, gorgeous bone and lay box, right? I got it from HomeGoods, but it stores all of our remotes. So it's perfectly functional and I don't have to look at all of the remotes. So I love doing little things like that, especially in a small space. You really need to like hone in on storage. So things like that to me are just a perfect hack. So I just like to layer things. So I keep saying that, but like a book with a box on top and then fun trinkets. Like these are dice that I got with a friend. We went up to Hudson, New York. We spent the day and we went thrifting and we got these at the first store we went to. It's a cute little coffee shop and we were like, how fun is that? And every time I look at them, I'm like, oh, what a treat. You'll see that's a theme, but I love to pick up things where I can. So this, I love to add extra texture where I can too. So this tray is another budget HomeGoods find. And I wanted it to feel like it wasn't three just stacks that were the same. I wanted them to feel slightly different. So that's why I like to also mix and match with height. This vessel is also thrifted from a thrift store up on the Upper East Side. Probably got it for like $5 to $10, but I think it just adds so much flair to it. Again, matches are something I love to collect. So this I got actually recently at a thrift store, Luckett's. It's a cute little town in Virginia and they've got like amazing home decor finds, but a huge matchbox like this with really long matches, which is just like so fun. And I like to have the top peek out a little bit because the blue is, you know, why not? And then over here is another thrifted find. So I got this silver tray. It's got little footies on the bottom. And I got this at a thrift store in Cold Spring and I was on my way out, had a million things, and I saw it and I was like, I really wanted just like a big catch-all for all my matches. I love to show my matches because they're just fun. They add color. It's not so serious. But when I bought it, it was super tarnished. So I think that's why people kept passing up on it because it had really good bones. But it was pretty much black and you could see on the bottom that there was silver. So I did a like a silver cleaner, and I removed all the tarnish, and it looks like $1,000,000, and I think I probably got it for like $15. But to me, it just tells like such a fun story, and it adds so much flair. So now my coffee table, while it's functional, with our remotes and a place to drop your drink and a place to, you know, eat, all of that, it's still pretty, and it also has little bits and pieces of moments that I like to look back on fondly. And I think that is just the key to making a space feel like you. It doesn't feel so serious, but it feels like, oh sure, I'll just, you know, I'll just plop here with my book, because it feels super inviting. So this corner was like my most hated nook in our apartment for the longest time. I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. And I felt like it was just collecting things, and it was just, oh, I hated it. But when you walk in, it's the first thing you see. So I was like, okay, I'm determined to make this feel like a cute, cozy little nook. And so I did a few different things to sort of pull that off. First, a DIY hack. We have our steam radiator here, because it's an old New York City building. And what my dad helped me do is build this wood structure, and then I got these aluminum sheets and I painted them white. So now when you look at this, it's not such an eyesore, and it's just, yeah, you know something's going on over there, but it's not this horrible looking old radiator. I got this brown velvet chair from Target, and my favorite hack to do is a lot of furniture from Amazon or Target, they tend to be pretty short, and I knew I wanted it to be a little taller, because when I first put in the Target chair, it felt a little squatty and it felt a bit disconnected. So I got these legs from Amazon, maybe $20, and I screwed them in instead. So I wanted to add a little bit of flair too. So the legs that they came with were straight and just like a very light wood, and I wanted to add in something with a little bit of interest, so a little bit of a turn and a dark wood. And I think that now it makes the chair feel way more luxurious than it is just a Target chair. And I knew I wanted to add in some color. So adding in a pop of blue here felt just like a fun nod to the rest of the apartment, because I've got blues, I've got greens, and all brown and all neutral felt just too disconnected. I liked it as the base, but I knew I needed a little something. So honestly, the animal print is unexpected from the rest of my space, but it feels good. It feels right because it's got white in it. It's not shiny or anything like that. It just feels like a pretty print. And I think that it makes this space feel like interesting because it's a little more unexpected. And the art here, my favorite thing to do is just do a little pairing of 2 pieces of art, 3 pieces of art. I just love that look. So that is a Target frame that I took a piece of craft paper and I did some watercolors. And then above that is a thrifted frame and then a thrifted piece of art. I think it was probably a print from a shop downtown. And I've cut that print into like 3 different pieces of art in my apartment. I'll show you them. But it's just like a neutral base, and I love that the colors are soft, neutral, but they're not flat. And I think that this corner is like my favorite in the apartment now, and it gets so much airtime on my TikTok because I think so many people kind of resonate with that cozy reading nook that you see in all these movies. And I kind of brought it to life, and I just love how it looks. So this lamp is one of my favorites. It's from Target. Everything's from Target. It's a gooseneck lamp, and it's got this really pretty rattan shade to it. And because of the warmth of the shade itself, the light it emits is really pretty and soft. And I think that it's, again, it's something interesting, which is my kind of key to making a space feel curated and unique, is that I didn't just go for like a straight lamp with like a linen drum shade, which I've got in other spots, don't get me wrong. But over here, I wanted it to sort of pack a punch because I knew I was just doing a chair and a lamp. So adding interest in the color and the material and the shape of it really makes it feel like this cool moment. And I love how it looks. And at night, it's just so cozy. This area is kind of my second iteration. When we first moved in, I didn't know what to do with this space, and it just felt like a missed opportunity. Once I hung the curtains, I was like, okay, now we're framing this up for something cool, for this to be a fun moment. So at first we had a bar cart that was like black glass with gold, I'm not really sure why we went for that. And then I ended up DIYing the black, and I kind of put this like linen peel and stick over it to sort of soften it. And it still just felt so harsh, and it felt a little bit dorm roomy, if I'm being honest. So after a while, I was like, just not loving it. And I kind of hated this area until I got it right. So I ended up going for a really dark bar cart, and that's what I knew I wanted. Once I was moving away from the gold, I knew I wanted something rich and sophisticated looking, but I wasn't gonna spend. So I actually got this from Amazon, and people are always like so incredibly shocked by that. And I agree, because it's a big, big piece. It holds a lot. The color is nice. It's not shiny or anything. It's got these wheels on it. It just, to me, looks like an heirloom piece that someone's always had. And I knew I wanted to be able to stack and layer things here, so this could feel like a moment. And I think that the dark plays really well with the light curtains and the light walls. And I just think it feels, especially at night, it just feels like a library kind of. It feels sort of super cozy. And you kind of feel like you're in a secluded, like a wine bar or something like that. So these pieces I get a lot of questions about because I do show this particular angle in our apartment quite a bit. So this is a piece my mom painted years and years and years ago, and it was just sitting in our attic, and I loved the color, and I didn't have quite a spot for it in mind, but I knew I would find a place for it. So I hung it here and could not figure out what to do here. And it took me, a bunch of different versions of hanging different pieces together for it not to feel so crazy. And I think that this bright teal works in this space with the rest of the room because I balanced it out with a super neutral piece of art. Which this art I get so many questions about, and it's so funny to me because it's literally a piece of poster board from Target, and then I took Crayola watercolors and did little loops because I had seen on Pinterest or other things online this sort of loop-de art. And I liked how it looked. I liked that it was simple. I liked that it wasn't boring, but I liked that it added a little color. So I thought that pairing these together was just like a fun contradiction. And I think it really plays well too with that gold picture lamp, and that's from Amazon. I love to mix highs and lows, and I think that it really makes it feel like this is a fixed piece of our apartment. And I've also layered in things like I love my dried hydrangeas, and I get these from Etsy. And I love the green because they require zero maintenance and they just always stay pretty. And I've got fun things like this I picked up at a thrift store. It's this really fun seashelled, I don't know what I would call it, platter, no, tray maybe. And I just think something like that is fun and unexpected, and it pops so well on the dark wood. And then we've got things down here that, these my mom gave me from her grandparents, and my grandparents had some other glassware. So I've got things layered in that are new, but also mixed with old. And I think that's how you strike the balance between something feeling so stark and showroomy is when you mix in the personal pieces that tell a story. I think that makes it feel cozy. So this bookcase is from IKEA, and it's actually 3 pieces. So this is like a bookcase tower with concealed storage down here, and this is a dresser, and then that over there is the same bookcase. So I wanted it to be a fun place to display things that were pretty and kind of added personality to the space without it being overstimulating. So on my first go of the bookcases, I had a lot of crazy colors and it was just too much. So I've pared it down. And a fun thing to do and an easy hack to do is any book that's got a crazy spine, but you want to use, you can always flip them around. So now you're just seeing the pages of the books. So this still reads super neutral, but the actual spines of those, some of those are red. And I also like to do things like I have photos of me and my boyfriend, and I've got them in black and white with a fun frame, because when you've got too many colors, you kind of get a little lost in the sauce and it feels a bit crazy. So putting them in black and white is one of my favorite things to do because it still adds personality and it still adds that little, personal touch to your space, but it's not introducing other colors that aren't in the rest of your space, and it feels like it's distracting. Our bookcases in here get a lot of traction online. So they are just modular shelves from IKEA, but what I did, I did a little DIY hack. So I put peel and stick wallpaper on the back of it, and I also put wood contact paper on the shelf. So everything was all white to begin with, and it just felt too harsh on the brick wall. The all red wall with the all white just felt too disconnected. So I thought that softening it with the wood contact paper just really made it feel nice and cozy. And then once I did that, I lived with that for a while. And once I'd painted our bedroom and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go back to some wallpaper. And I just put a neutral but printed wallpaper on the back here. So it honestly feels more like a built-in than it does a piece from IKEA. And I think sometimes people are shocked that they're not like custom built-ins or anything, because they do feel more lived in. And a lot of the pieces here, again, are accumulation of things over time. So some of these books are thrifted from thrift stores, or some of these boxes, like these are from Home Goods. And I like to add height because I think that makes things look interesting. I don't want everything to feel horizontal, and I don't want everything to feel vertical. And I also think always adding a floral or a green makes your space feel alive. So I've got florals all over, and a plant like this is super practical in New York because it doesn't require a lot of light and a lot of maintenance. But again, it adds a little bit of life to the space, and it doesn't feel like a showroom. I love random pieces like this. This was an egg that I got at a thrift store down on the Lower East Side, and I found this little ring that it sits on, and it wasn't sold together. It was with something else, and they were like, oh yeah, you can mix that stand with that. So this piece, I just think it's so fun and pretty and adds just a fun flair. And I am obsessed with the mini lamps. So I've got lamps everywhere, table lamps, floor lamps, and this you can put like a rechargeable bulb in here, and it just sits and it's so cute. So this desk area is kind of a funny story. So this was a desk that a friend had in her apartment and was getting rid of. It was like a vanity. So we had it in our bedroom, and I used to work from home in there, and there's like not as much natural light in there at all. And it was just collecting stuff pretty much. So we were like, why don't we pull it out? I'm gonna make a little nook here. I used to have a table here with a tablecloth over it. And honestly, it was like a catch-all spot for a soccer ball or pickleball rackets, tennis rackets. And I could kind of like conceal it under this tablecloth. But we didn't have the luxury to just have like spots to store stuff like that. So I decided to move our desk from our bedroom out here, and now it's great for days when I work from home and when my boyfriend works from home. And it's so nice because it's by the window and it gets a ton of natural light. And I wanted it to be not so stark white because yes, the desk is white and the rest of our apartment has bits of white, but I wanted it still to feel so connected to the rest. So I made this little gallery wall of different thrifted frames, home good frames, prints from coffee table books. This is actually, these butterflies are from a poster that my boyfriend and I went downtown. We got, it was this poster from like somewhere down in the seaport, and I liked the butterflies, and so I cut them out. This was a big map from a thrift store up in Hudson, and I basically cut it into little pieces, so I've got other parts of this throughout the apartment. But I liked the blue, and I liked that it was ripped and lived in, and it's from the 1920s, so I think stuff like that is just so cool and interesting, because I also want art to feel like there's a reason for it. I didn't want to just put Target art on the walls that kind of mean nothing and don't add so much. And I think that adding in blues and greens here and the unexpected, the burlwood, and then like random things like this, like a stacked set of books with this cabbage pot that I got. I think that things like that make it feel like, oh, someone lives here and there's a personality. So before I take you into the kitchen, I want to talk about our little bar counter moment. Another budget find. All of our bar stools are from Target. We used to have these dark leather with black leg bar stools that we got when we first moved in. There wasn't much design thought behind it. It was just, we needed them and we needed them fast. So I wanted to opt for something lighter and a bit airier. And I just love how these look. And this is another funny art DIY moment. So I wanted this to feel, again, connected to the rest of our apartment, and I wanted to take advantage of this big blank wall. So I just did a little watercolor moment with some, again, poster board from Target and then Crayola watercolors, and I just mixed some blues and greens, and I didn't want it to feel so blue or so green, so it's kind of why it ended up like a little bit of like a seafoamy blue. And I just think that this is a fun peek into the rest of the kitchen where I've got blues, I've got greens, and I've got neutrals. And I just think it's a little bit of fun color and flair to add to this wall to make it feel like a moment. The art in my apartment is funny because I've DIY'd a lot of it, and it's not so much out of a love for art. I mean, I love making things look nice, but I also am so cognizant of budget. So sometimes it's just out of necessity where I figured I didn't exactly know what I wanted and I wasn't gonna spend time looking for a print and buying these prints, where I was like, I can just basically craft it on my own and then I can tweak it. So if I made them and I was like, oh, it's a little too blue, I could just go ahead and add green. It's kind of a funny story how I got here, but I was making charcuterie boards that actually started as a hobby and a means for me to, as a creative outlet, and then it turned into a full-fledged business. And so I did that for a few years, and then I actually met my old boss, who I did a board and a whole presentation for a Golden Globes party. And it ended up being, we worked so well together, I ended up working for her full time. So we worked in events and we did TV and movie premieres, and I was between LA and New York quite a bit, but it really made me realize how much I loved the design part of what I was doing, and I felt like I was getting closer to what I've always loved, which is all things home. So I basically used my apartment to build a portfolio for myself, and I would do different things around it. I would peel and stick, and I would sort of film, and then I realized that, like, oh, this could be my way back into interior design, and I basically used my space to create a portfolio, and that's sort of how I got into interior design now, which is what I do full time. I think why people follow me online on my TikTok in particular is I like to show people that you can sort of reimagine any space, especially in a New York City apartment. When we moved in, everything was a blank space, and I said, like, I'm gonna make this into a home. I wanted, after a long day of work and the craziness of Manhattan, to come home and feel like calm and feel peace and quiet. So we've kind of carved out this little slice of heaven for ourselves up here. And I think that a lot of people really resonate with that, not living in a fancy luxury building and making it feel cozy and like a home. And I think that there's a lot of layering and things that I do in here that sort of make it feel that way. But honestly, I think that most people come to my page because of how it makes them feel. Like, I look at my space and I'm like, oh, I feel calm. My brain feels quiet. And I think that when people see that on their page, it's kind of like a nice, okay, like I see some blues and greens and neutrals, and it just feels like a cozy space you want to like curl up and read a book. Next, I want to come show you our kitchen. Our kitchen, I feel like I made the most changes in, and when people see the befores, I would say they're probably the most shocked by it. So our counters were white, our walls were white, like shiny cement, and then our floors were these large bricks that were, some were crumbled and they were uneven and broken. This window area too, it's a big window, but it goes to an alleyway, so there's not even a ton of natural light, but it's pretty spooky looking, so I made sure to make a moment out of it. So I put these really pretty bamboo shades on it, so we still get a little light in, but it's also not just looking out into a creepy alleyway. And this little nook has become a favorite part of mine in our apartment. And I've stacked some cookbooks here. I've added a cutting board. Adding a little lamp, I mean, you cannot go wrong. I've got 2 lamps in the kitchen, and the kitchen's about 4 feet. And I love to add a little bit of art, so it's unexpected too. This art is from a garage sale I got in Maryland. A funny story about our wood contact paper. Our super came to fix something, and he was like, oh, you guys got wood counters like no one else in your building does. And I was like, we definitely don't either. I spent many hours doing peel and stick on our floors, here, and the wall, and I think it just softens everything. The walls, I just wanted something that would make it pretty without making such a statement. Because it's a small space, you could lean into a big bold print, but I just didn't want to add any extra chaos. So I went for this really pretty gray print, and it just adds a little bit of softness. So this is a thrifted plate that I got, and this is a fun little hanging basket, I would say, and we keep some wedding save the dates in there. And I think it just, I love to kind of make little moments even in a small space. So in here, I've got I've got art on all the walls, and it's a tiny space, but I wanted it to still pack a punch and still feel like people lived here, even though it's a rental. And I think sometimes people think it's crazy that I do all these things to a rental, but I also think it's crazy to live in a rental and not make it feel like a home just for the sake of it's not permanent. So all of my hacks and tricks are super affordable, and when we leave, this will peel right off. The floor tiles will come right off. You have to make sure you put clear contact paper below it so that way the original floor is not harmed, and that I will make sure I mentioned. But it's not to say that you can't make a space feel so cozy even in a rental. So some of this art too this is an IKEA frame with a piece of fabric that I got. I just like the colors. This is from another coffee table book. This is actually a frame that my boyfriend and I got in Ireland, and I just, I think it's so fun to look at things that, again, have sentimental value. And I like adding in pops of blues and greens so it matches the rest of the apartment. So this little cooking moment over here, this gets a lot of airtime online. I'm obsessed with this was a little Target lamp I had, and I switched out the shade for this pretty rattan one, and it just adds so much warmth to it. And this cooking area at night is where I spend the most time, and it's so cute and cozy. And again, I've got art, thrifted frames, and then this is actually another continuation of that print I've got from that corner nook, and it's sliced up again into another piece of art. But it's just, again, it's soft and pretty, but it adds personality to this space. Living in New York in a small one-bedroom comes with a lot of quirks. One being, this was the fridge that we were given when we moved in. It's a tiny mini fridge, and now it's honestly like a drink fridge for us. We had to buy our own refrigerator, and when I was doing my charcuterie boards, honestly, it worked out just fine. So because we only had the tiny little fridge here, we had to buy our own fridge and freezer, which worked out because I was doing charcuterie boards at the time. So this lives in our hallway. It's an extension of the kitchen, but I didn't want it to feel like such an eyesore. So I put a little basket on top with some cookbooks and a plant, and it just adds some personality. And we keep pictures of us and places we've been, and we'll buy magnets, so it kind of feels, I don't want anything to feel so serious. Like, I want it to feel like it's our home and it's our apartment. So I've got fun, crazy magnets on here. So this is a fun, little additive to our apartment. These were, I think my dad had actually saved some of these for me from fortune cookies, and I just thought they were cute sentiments to have on your way out before you start your day. Good reminders sometimes when you're looking in the mirror. And I just think adding things like that kind of make it feel like people live here and it is a home as opposed to a showroom. I think my absolute favorite renter-friendly hack is all things peel and stick. I've got peel and stick floor tiles, a wallpaper. I've got it on my bookcases. It's such an affordable way to really zhuzh your space up, and you don't have to live with the space that you were given in a rental. You can kind of make it feel soft and cozy. And it's very tedious, and you have to have a lot of patience when you do it, but the outcome is always so nice because you can kind of make it into whatever you want. Like on this bookcase here, I've got peel and stick wallpaper on the back and then contact paper on the top. So it was an all white bookcase that now feels like a little bit more like a library. In our bathroom too, in our kitchen. And I think that peel and stick wallpaper can totally elevate a space. I do think it's fun because it's very affordable, and in a small space like mine, I don't need a lot. I've only needed several rolls for my bathroom or my kitchen, and it's not so crazy, but it does pack a big punch, which is what I love. So we'll just pop into the bathroom really fast on our way to the bedroom. I've got some art here in our hallway. Again, some other clippings that we've seen in other parts from prints that I've kind of sliced up. But I wanted at least this entry when you first walk in. It's a tiny wall, but I still wanted it to pack a punch. And then in our bathroom, I just did some very minor cosmetic things. When you live in a rental in New York, your bathrooms tend to be pretty bleak, and it was all white. Our floors were this like really dark green, which just, I didn't love. There was nothing wrong with it, I just didn't love it. So I did peel and stick wallpaper on the walls, and then I did on the floor as well. And I added in some art, some thrifted art, some candles, some flowers, some decor, a pretty hand soap dispenser. So that way at least it feels like us, and it feels cozy, and it feels peaceful, and it feels like it's part of the rest of the apartment, and it doesn't feel like this sort of piece that doesn't add up. I wanted it to feel like there was continuity, and I think just adding those quick little things really made a big difference. I think the best way to create and carve out a little slice of peace in the craziness that's Manhattan is finding and making your space feel like you, and making it feel cozy and super layered. So like, I love to have lamps everywhere. So at night, the overhead lights are not on. It feels like it's lamp o'clock, it's soft, it's cozy, and I like to see things that I like to look at. So I like to have photos of me and my boyfriend around the apartment. I like to have little things I've collected over time. So it makes it feel personal and to you. And after, you know, a long day and commuting and on the subways, you come home and you're like, okay, this space is mine. And I think that a nice way to do that is layering, and you layer in pieces that spark joy for you somehow. So I've got sentimental pieces layered with books from a thrift store, and at the end of the day I look and I see all these soft surfaces that when you come home from all the cement and the concrete of the city, you come home and it's like a soft place to land. I think that's what makes a home feel super cozy, and that's that Nancy Meyers look. It's that super layered look. It's got blues and greens and neutrals, and it's got floor lamps and table lamps and pillows and blankets and stacks of books, and it just feels like someone lives here as opposed to like a museum. And nothing in my home is so precious that, like, you know, be careful of the rug. Like, it's not like that. I want it to feel lived in, which is what makes a place feel so cozy. And at the end of the day, what I crave to come home and be like, okay, I can decompress and just like veg and read a book or whatever it is. And now I want to show you guys our bedroom. It is teeny tiny. This was the only spot that the bed would work, and it's a full-size bed, and I know that appalls a lot of people, but there was no world in which it would fit any other way. So we weren't able to have a headboard, which I wanted to make up for in other design choices. So this is my latest project. I painted stripes on our walls, which took years off my life, and I'm not joking. I wanted it to feel like a Parisian hotel, and not that I've been to one, but what I would envision it feeling like. And I wanted it to feel soft and cozy. And there's this really pretty Schumacher wallpaper that I love, way out of budget. So I said, let me figure out how I can kind of do it on my own terms. So I did a really light color, and then I had to measure out and do all the taping. And then I did this dark taupe. And I think that the two together look so soft and pretty, and it just adds so much character to the space. Originally, it was all white, and I just didn't like that. And so I painted it blue. So if you'll see on the door and the trim, it's this darkish blue. And I had painted the whole room that. Last year, I did the whole room, including the ceilings, in this blue. And I did the trims and the door and the closet in a high gloss. So it would really feel intentional. And I wanted to feel like the room was just like drenched in this really rich color, because we don't get a ton of light in here. So I tried to like lean into that. And it honestly, I loved it for the winter months. It felt like a cocoon. But then in the summer, it felt kind of offensive. It was like, oh, it's so pretty and nice out, but you're coming to this cave. So I decided to scratch that, but I loved the blue I had picked, and I wanted to keep some of that. So that's why we've still got some blue in here. And I think that the blue pairs so well with these neutrals because it adds a fun pop, and doing it in a high gloss makes it feel super elevated. And it's all just Benjamin Moore paint and a lot of patience. So I wanted our bed to feel cozy and inviting, but I also love the look of a crisp white hotel room, but I wanted to add a little bit of warmth. So I added in some other materials. So we've got some linens, and I added in this blue quilt. and I've got some grays and whites in here. And I think that adding in extra layers, whether it's pillows, accent pillows, or comforters at the end of your bed, it really makes your space in your bed just feel extra cozy. We don't have a headboard because we don't have space for it, so I wanted to make sure that the pillows felt like they carried a lot of weight visually. And so I also wanted to make sure I did art right above the bed that added some height. So I like that the pillows filled up the space here, and then you've got height in the art that you don't even realize that you don't have a headboard. And I think that doing little things like that are kind of unique to New York, in that you've got to put your bed where you can, and you're going to have to make some sacrifices, but you can make up for it in other ways with some design choices. So I feel like this is kind of a perfect way of showcasing in a small New York City bedroom. It does not have to be boring, and it can still add a lot of personality. This art above our bed is another DIY moment. I got these frames from Target, and I just liked that it was a big, pretty mat, and then you can choose the frame size. And I wanted it to be small, but again, pack a punch. And it's the same thing. I just did a little watercolor moment. I wanted to add some blue, but I didn't necessarily want it to be the exact same blue as the trim in here. And I love the contrast between the white, the bright blue, and the gold. And I think it's simple, but it's intriguing that it just adds what it needs. It's not too much, it's not too chaotic, but it's not boring. And I think that mixing it with everything else and all the whites, the little bit of blue, is just like such a fun elevated punch to me. So I had this sort of dead space in our bedroom. This is where our desk used to be. And imagine working from home here in an all dark room with no natural light and then dark blue walls. It is just not the most conducive for a work from home environment. And we always need the extra storage. So we got this dresser. It's a Wayfair find. One day I'll upgrade the hardware, but it just fits so perfectly. And I wanted it to have a little height too, so I could sort of make a moment of it. And again, adding in art and personality is like the best way to do it. And it doesn't need to break the bank. So this is another continuation of my craft paper with watercolor series. And it's an IKEA frame. This is another Target frame with another watercolor. It's the scraps from the art above my bed. The one above it is actually something my mom painted too when she was younger. And I just love the blue and I love the sentiment. It's this really pretty oil painting. Like I would pick it up on my own, but even more special that my mom made it. And then the top is actually a postcard. It's a watercolor painted like postcard that my boyfriend and I got when we were at a wedding down in Virginia. And it was a cute old town, and we saw it and we thought the colors fit perfectly and we wanted to get something from there. So I hung it up there. I also got this very, very vintage racket from a thrift store down in Virginia, Luckett's, which I'd mentioned before. It's this like amazing town, and there's just like houses filled with thrifted goodies. And I just saw the racket, thought it was fun, no real meaning behind it, but not everything has to have meaning behind it. And I just think it's kind of unserious in a way, and we play pickleball, so it's kind of a little nod to that. But I just think it also breaks up the bright white IKEA frame, so mixing the new with the old makes it kind of feel cohesive. On the dresser, this felt like it was part of this whole situation. So I got this lamp from Home Sense and this really pretty raffia shade, which I just thought was so pretty and soft and kind of is a nod to my other lamps inside. And then I just lighted a coffee table book, this mannequin I got at a thrift store, my favorite dried hydrangeas, again, no maintenance, and then some more matches. So I think that adding these little vignettes with some personality make this space feel like it's meant to be part of this bigger picture of the room and the apartment, where it was originally a space that I was like, ugh, couldn't figure out what to do with it. And now I love it, which is the same like the nook in my living room. It was a space I originally hated, and now it's my favorite. This dresser was one of the first things we bought too, and we just needed storage. There wasn't much design thought into it, so we just got this big white dresser from Wayfair. And I knew that I needed to add more personality to it, so I thought I could do that on top of it. So again, I love to layer. So I've got stacks of coffee table books. I've got some candles, some flowers, some thrifted pieces. Doing a tray is just the best way to sort of fill the space because I've got my stacks of books and I've got height, but I didn't want to do it again, just like the same as the coffee table. So I went ahead and did a scallop tray for some interest. I've got this really pretty blue speckled ring jewelry tray. I've got some more matches, some more dice, and then I've got a really pretty hurricane candle. And I think that it's just easy enough. It looks pretty. We've got plenty of space for getting ready in the morning, whatever it might be, but it also softens it because the white is so stark. I wanted it to feel like we've got blues and we've got browns and we've got neutrals, but it still feels like it's a part of the rest of the apartment. And another hack I did is these are not even plug-in sconces. I have rechargeable bulbs in them. So they are real hardwired sconces that just aren't hardwired. And I just love the look of them because it just finishes off the dresser for me. I've got the mirror and then I've got these flanking it, and it just is a finishing touch to it. Now this art over here on the stripes, I love how it looks. This is an IKEA frame with a page out of a coffee table book, classic. A thrifted piece of art in its frame, and then this is actually that Hudson map that I've cut up in a million pieces, but I just love the blue, and I think that the dark blue is nice, A, against the stripes, and B, with the light blue. And I love to stack art. I don't love necessarily one piece on its own. Sometimes you have to, and it makes the most sense, like we've got that above our couch. But when I can, I love to stack 2s and 3s, and especially odd numbers. So this to me just finishes off this wall because when you walk in, it's the first thing you see. And I didn't want to miss the opportunity to just leave it empty. So kind of went for it. And I think that it just softens this corner in this area. And it just, again, is another place to add some personality and make another moment of it. When I had first painted the bedroom in the all blue, I went for a really high gloss on the closet. I wanted it to feel different from the walls, but I also wanted it to feel totally drenched in color. So the way I could differentiate the two was in its finish. So it honestly is like my favorite part of the room now because of how the color and the finish pop on the walls. I think the blue is so fun with the neutrals. The shine is just, I don't know, it's so fun. And when you add a shine and a high gloss, it makes a space feel super elevated. And again, it's a super easy way to do it. It's just a Benjamin Moore paint, but it just packs a punch. And we could have just left the doors white, but why not paint it blue and high gloss if you can? I think home is without a doubt a feeling that either when you come back to your apartment or you're with friends or with family, it's not so much a physical place as it is a feeling. In our apartment specifically, it just feels like us, and it feels cozy and it feels warm and inviting, and we like to have friends over for Sunday football, and it feels just like a gathering place, which I love. And it's not so much that where our apartment actually sits, it's sort of how we've created it, and it's not a vibe, but it's more just the feeling of it is what I always identify home as.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Todd from Studio Todd Raymond, and today we're in my loft apartment in Soho, New York. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Todd Raymond. I have an interior design firm called Studio Todd Raymond, and today we are in my loft in Soho, New York. So we sort of found this apartment. We didn't actually look at too many apartments. I think we looked at 4 or 5, and this was the very first one we saw and put an offer into it. Our selling point, we walked in and it was very much a raw, loft space from like the 80s, like had not been updated, had not been renovated. And what we loved most about the apartment was these sort of 7 sets of French doors that opened to a Juliet balcony. It really made us think that we were in Europe. It felt very Madrid, it felt very Paris. And we sort of took that theme and ran with it. So, you know, there was no applied moldings, you know, in the apartment at all. It was very much like a raw space. So we kind of brought in that old world charm with the applied moldings and sort of created our own little Europe in New York. So when you enter our home, you come down sort of the hallway into this sort of open gallery and step down what's into our kitchen and TV room. So this is our kitchen. We sort of designed it to really be about entertaining. You know, it's very functional from a, you know, regular kitchen perspective. We have pantries, fridge, you know, dishwasher, range, all of that. But what is really special about this kitchen is that we created these bifold doors that close up when we entertain. I'm just going to show you right now. And so when we have parties, we love to be able to close these doors and actually close off the sort of guts and the ugly bits of the kitchen. And that's so that this acts as more of a backdrop to our island, which serves as a bar. Our kitchen island is this really beautiful taupey mushroom kind of marble color. We wanted it to really be a big monolithic bar. We have a pit range here. All of the controls are actually on the back side here, so you don't see it, but the cool thing about these is that they go right onto the marble. And then we have the sort of vent here by Gaggenau that pops up when we're cooking, but it's pretty discreet and lowered when we're not cooking. When we entertain, we actually, again, we created this. We actually have a piece of wood that goes over this range to actually hide it. Again, getting rid of like the idea that this is a real kitchen. It's actually in the same finish as this millwork, as this chocolate brown. So when guests come in, if we're having a really big cocktail party, for 40, 50, 60 people, we'll have a piece of wood covering this with the sort of ice buckets and whatnot, and maybe a bartender standing here, and then people can kind of come in, they can get a drink at the bar, aka the kitchen, and then kind of meander on to the rest of the apartment and space. But I think it's really nice to entertaining tips, never serve red wine. But anything goes really. I mean, we try to always do a full bar when we entertain so that people can, have their own selection of whatever they want to drink. So we wanted to pick a dark color to really kind of step out as a statement piece. I love chocolate brown. I feel like chocolate brown for me is like black. It's a really beautiful neutral. And I think it goes with a lot of things. We specifically wanted to highlight the grain, of the wood. And we just thought that this sort of dark chocolate brown would really be a nice, rich, elegant way to elevate the space. The light fixture over the island, again, was sort of meant to act as something that's not traditionally found in a kitchen. And so we chose this pendant that sort of reads as if it might be over a dining room table, for instance. And again, that's sort of to set the stage. It's sort of the chocolate brown millwork is a nice backdrop for such a beautiful sort of fixture that you maybe wouldn't find in a typical kitchen. Yeah, when we first saw the apartment, it was, as I said, very raw and very sort of industrial. There was an artist that was living here. It was his sort of New York live-work space. And so there was big vents going out through the transom windows to get all the fumes out of the apartment, and paint on the columns, and it was pretty much one big empty space. There was one big glass wall made of those like 1970s glass bricks that basically divided the bathroom from the living space, but there was really no doors, so it was very much like this loft space, like very much a bed in the corner and a sofa up at the front by the windows, and it was just like very raw. We actually lived in the apartment for close to 2 years while we were figuring out what we wanted to do with it. It felt like we were going back to like college living. It was like we didn't have any furniture yet, and it felt like this very big echoey space that hadn't been touched since the 1980s. This is not a really large space, but we wanted to really make sure that the TV area was close to the kitchen. And what we really did was just kind of it was not a very wide space. You can see we just wanted to be able to sit close to, we have a small TV. We're not huge TV people, so it wasn't as important to us. But what was important to us was that it sort of still felt sophisticated and still felt elevated. Again, when we entertain, this isn't a separate area where people can sit and just talk to one another. This is a vintage Guillerme and Chambron cabinet from the 1970s. They did a lot of really beautiful sort of oak pieces like this. This one in particular is a little bit unique because of the integrated table lamp, but his stuff is amazing, and we thought it was a nice way to sort of ground this whole elevation. So we chose to actually go with silk rugs in the space. One of our we definitely knew we wanted to have an elegant, elevated space for entertaining. And what I love to do is sort of play on textures. I love the fact that a silk rug adds a shine. And I think that's really important in a sophisticated, elegant space. This is like a dark olive green rug that we chose for this area. You can see it's all like, you know, the step marks on it from where your shoes are. But we just loved it. It sort of acted as a nice sort of neutral to ground this area. What I loved was we actually ended up purchasing this beautiful artwork that has a mint green background, which I thought worked really well with the olive green rug. And so, you know, a little bit of green, a little bit of cinnamon in this area. This is the most colorful area of the home, but a lot of people would say it's not even that colorful. So I think the dark millwork adds like a grounding feature to our apartment. Our concept really was to have these old world sort of applied moldings to the wall that sort of help solidify that fact of, hey, this might have felt like it was in Madrid or Paris with the beautiful French doors. So from the exterior shell of the apartment has all these beautiful sort of more traditional elements. The more solid elements of the millwork kind of ground the middle of the apartment. So all of the dark millwork is super modern. It's super sort of sleek in contrast to the very traditional applied moldings. And the whole center of the apartment is sort of like that. So I think the dark color really helps ground the whole apartment. I think it's important to live in a space before you design it if you can. One of the things that we love about this apartment is that we face east, and so we love waking up to the sun. That's important to us. And knowing how that sun hits the space and changes throughout the day was actually really important for us to live here, to understand that. And sort of when we came to designing the layout and the materials and the finishes, we sort of took that into consideration. You know, we have a sofa here that completely faces the French doors just to capture that view. So I think it's actually important to sort of live in a space and see how you navigate around it, see what parts you like, what parts you don't like. The footprint of this apartment was very different to what it is now. As I said, it was sort of one big open space. So it was interesting to sort of carve out different rooms and try to figure out like spatially where we wanted things to be. So that was kind of fun as well. So after you walk sort of through the TV room and the kitchen, you enter into the sort of the really big living and main entertaining space. So this is a combination of dining room, we have a living room and bar as well. It feels like home when it's just the two of us, but it's ample seating for cocktail parties, for dinner parties. Again, the sort of dark millwork wraps around and continues to follow throughout the whole apartment. The chair is a topic. I don't know that my husband loves the chair. I think he thinks it's cool and it looks amazing, and it does. It is pretty comfortable. What I love to do is actually just surprise sometimes with some really unique pieces of furniture. This is one of those sculptural pieces of furniture that, you know, it's not the chair that you want to sit in every day, but it's fun to have as an extra sort of chair when you entertain. And Chester likes it too. Chester is our 6-year-old Norfolk Terrier, and he wants to say hi to everyone. He said, hi. So hi, bud. Our house is dog friendly. You know, our dog is we let our dog onto all of the furniture, and, you know, he's basically a little human. So, you know, there's no real restrictions from that perspective, although we do have a dog gate, but that's because, you know, we like to contain him a little bit. Yeah, we're often asked to do a lot of projects that have pet-friendly fabrics and durable materials and things like that. So it's definitely something we took into consideration in this apartment and used outdoor performance fabrics where we could, and Scotch-guarded things. And yeah, like, you know, we have a silk area rug in our living room that's white. You know, it'll get dirty, but my sort of motto is that homes are meant to be lived in and accidents happen, but we're really not super concerned with Chester. I don't know if you can see him on camera, but he's right here. So next room is our dining room. This was the very first piece of furniture that we bought for the apartment and sat in storage for like 2 years while we were doing the renovations. But this is a table that we got from a gallery in Madrid, and it's this really cool boomerang shape made out of 2 different stones and 2 different tables that technically don't touch. There's like an 1.5 inch gap in between the tables. But ironically, what we ended up taking from this table was this whole boomerang shape that's sort of repeated throughout the apartment. It's repeated in sort of the shape of the chandelier. The boomerang shape is kind of repeated in the chair that I just got up from. There's like little boomerang, that sort of angle in the sort of stone knobs of the vintage furniture. So it's that sort of very subtle boomerang shape that we kind of actually took as a jumping off perspective for the rest of the apartment. So this piece is by a guy named Damien Gurnay. He's repped at a gallery down in Miami called A-Bar Gallery, who we buy from quite a bit. It's actually glass. It looks like metal, but it's actually molded glass, and we just absolutely love it. Chandelier is by Apparatus Studio, covered in suede. The ceramic on the table we just bought on a trip to Palm Springs. The other vintage thing is these chairs. These are vintage leather chairs from the 60s, so it's chrome and leather, and I think it really adds a nice contrast to the really modern dining table and the really modern artwork. So that boomerang motif is kind of represented in even this table and the sort of shape it is, where we have displayed not so discreetly articles where we've been featured in press and print. But one of the things that we actually really do a lot of with our firm is we really study dimensions and proportion, like any designer does, but we really hone into the details of how much space there is in between the sofa and the coffee table and how far away the chairs are from that. And I think one of the reasons I like this living room, and I think it's successfully designed, is because there's actually a lot of movement and a lot of egress and a lot of space. So when we are entertaining, we have, people sitting here. My husband might be making drinks at the bar behind us, and I'm sitting over there. And there's enough space. Chester's also sitting with me. There's enough space to kind of move around, and nothing feels too cramped and too tight from that perspective. So one of the cool things that we also, again, thinking of entertaining when we were designing this apartment, when we entertain for people that we don't really know and we don't want to see what's behind here, which is our primary bedroom, we'll get to in a moment, we actually created these beautiful doors that shut very discreetly that sort of mimics the same design as the French doors. So it kind of reflects and makes it look as if the balcony outside keeps going on forever. Similarly, on this side, there's a little sort of secret millwork door that we can shut when we don't want guests that we don't know that well to sort of walk into our primary bedroom. But this shuts as well, so that this really becomes the public space and our private spaces stay private. We've had a couple big parties here. Our biggest party I think we've had was we had a pride party last year, and I think there was maybe 65 people here, which I was nervous. We hadn't ever had that many people in the apartment, but there was a lot of space. People were sitting, people were standing, people were in the bedroom. People were sort of like kind of everywhere, and it was really nice to actually have the sort of apartment come to life from that perspective. It didn't feel cramped, it didn't feel crammed, and it was a really nice sort of kinetic energy in the space. I have the viewpoint of my trajectory. My sort of goals in the industry are to really just do really good work. I feel like if that's recognized in publications, that's like an added bonus. But I really love the connection with people, and a lot of our projects come from referrals of projects that we've done for friends of friends of friends. That's really important to me, is to sort of build a business where people feel really happy about the process and as well as the end result. I would love to continue to grow my office from a project perspective. We have about 8 or 9 projects going at any one time, which is a lot, but I would like to grow that a little bit more. And then I also sort of want to get into product design a little bit. I would love to do collaborations with vendors. I would love to have a wallpaper collection. I'd love to have a rug collection. Maybe we open a gallery one day. My husband's Australian, and I say that at one point I would love to end up spending a lot more time in Australia, and who knows, maybe I open an outpost office in Sydney. So I do have high expectations for our company and where we can go, but it's sort of, put your head down and just do really good work, and I think the rest will fall into place. So one of the things that sold us on the apartment was these really beautiful French doors. Ironically, we don't really go out to the Juliet balcony very much. We actually don't use them. I think that's probably just a result of New York City being really grimy and gross, and we don't want that tracked inside. So, but on this exception today, we're gonna take you outside to the balcony. We're on Broadway here, and it's all the way down south and north. One of the things that we love about this apartment is our view, which is really unique in Soho as well. So we're on Broadway here between Prince and Spring Street. And what's really unique on this block is that all of these buildings across from us actually go down a level. So we have this incredible, very New York City view with lots of water towers and lots of buildings. And it's just a really beautiful part of why we enjoy this apartment so much. I think there's 17 water tanks in total. At one point I counted, but it's a very New York kind of view because there's so many water towers. We love it. I think we have 50 feet of frontage here. I don't think that this would even meet code today because the balcony is like so low, so it's a little bit scary when you first step out there. If you're not used to it, it feels like you're gonna topple over, which is a little bit dangerous, but not so much because we don't go out there that much. The building's called the Little Singer Building, and it's one of the original historic cast iron buildings of Soho. What's really unique about this building in Soho is that we have 50 foot of frontage here with Juliet balconies. And I feel like what's really special about this loft, and at least this size of loft in Soho, it's, you know, we're 2,500 square feet here, more or less. The other apartments that are sort of that size and scale are sort of these long, narrow, full floor apartments where you have 4 gigantic, beautiful windows at the front of the apartment and 4 gigantic windows at the back, and 2,500 square feet of nothing in the middle that you kind of have to carve up into kitchen and living spaces. We loved this apartment because it was sort of more of a square and more of a box, so it offered us the opportunity to really do this really long living room that is sort of dining room, living room, which turns into our bedroom, rather than having it be the perpendicular kind of typical orientation. Through this door is our primary suite. It's very cocoon-like. We upholstered the walls in a suede wallpaper, which give a really beautiful texture and a sort of warmth to them. I custom designed the integrated bedside tables and headboard in bed. It's sort of all designed by me and our team in our studio. And then what's really cool about this room is the artwork. It's pinned by yours truly. It's actually raw linen. So I found this beautiful weaver in France that weaves flax, it's called. And so I asked her if she could custom dye it, a beautiful sort of green color. And she thought it was a really fun sort of thing to do. So she sent me some samples of things that she was trying around, what colors kind of worked best. And so we agreed on this beautiful olive green color, and I asked her to just weave 3 yards of it for me. So it came on a bolt of fabric, and I had a back plate made for the top of it, and then I spent about 3 hours and just tried to pin it up, and kind of a little DIY tapestry artwork, but I think the effect is really beautiful. We have the sort of monopoint art lights in the ceiling that shine down on it, and flax, raw linen, actually has a little bit of a shine to it. So at night, which you're not seeing right now, but at night it's a really beautiful sort of glow and a beautiful shine to the material, which is really pretty. I like to keep our beds actually pretty simple. Our beds, meaning this is my own personal bed, but in projects I like to keep beds pretty simple. We don't tend to do too many pillows. We do custom coverlets, which is what this is, out of a cashmere. And then again, doubling down on the whole texture on texture on texture thing, we did a really thick, chunky faux fur blanket. It's actually from Restoration Hardware, just to kind of add that extra element of luxe on our bed. We knew we wanted a stool at the end of the bed. Functionality, we sit here, we put on our socks and shoes. This is an iconic butterfly stool made out of walnut. So there are actually 2 of them, and it's great just to kind of sit and use. So the dresser's not really anything that special in the sense that there's no sort of fanfare about it. We wanted a dark, sort of simple dresser. I think, again, just to kind of keep the room weighted, but also to kind of mimic that, like, everything is pretty simple. It's a very sort of cocoon-like room. Like, this is our sanctuary and this is the sleeping room. So we didn't really want to make too much out of it. The Hunt Sloman painting is a gift from really great friends of ours. It was a wedding gift when we got married, and we love waking up to see it every day. One of the things that we love about this apartment is that there's all these really amazing little hidden nooks and crannies, one of which is, we joke around, is our dog's special closet. So you can see here we have a little jib door that's covered in the same suede wallpaper, but it opens up to reveal, you know, extra dog toys, you know, bookkeeping things and whatnot, just a little extra closet for us, but you would never really notice that if you didn't know it was there. The light fixture we actually found, it looks like it's a vintage Murano fixture, but it's actually contemporary Murano glass. So it came from Italy. There's, I don't know how many leaves, like 25 independent leaves that are all sort of connected by the little brass fittings. We loved it, actually. That was ironically one of the more difficult decisions from a design perspective. I wasn't sold on it. My husband loved it. And I sort of went back and forth in my mind before we installed it, wondering whether or not it was going to be the right fit. But I actually love it. I think it makes the room. I actually came to design a little bit later in life. I had worked for many years in hospitality in New York City. So I had sort of a different career before I even got to interior design. But I ended up in interior design. I went back to school at Parsons for design, maybe when I was 26 years old, 27 years old, which was great. And I sort of started working for a few different designers here in New York, and sort of just kind of navigated the design world, like learning from some of the best AD 100 designers and some of the best designers in the industry. I ultimately started my own company about 5 years ago, and we work on projects, you know, geographically in New York because we're here. So we do lots of apartments in the city. We have a few projects in the Hamptons always going on, and we work up in the Hudson Valley quite a bit. My husband and I have a weekend place up there, and so we've created a little bit of a community and a networking up there. So we work in the Hudson Valley, which I think is wonderful. It's a very different vibe from New York. And then we do sort of work wherever it takes us. We just wrapped up a beautiful project in Palm Springs, California, of a mid-century modern house, which was fun to work on. Currently, we have some really fun things going on in the city here. We have the penthouse of the new Giorgio Armani building that's being built on 65th and Madison. So that's been a really fun project to sort of get off the ground. And then a couple fun projects. We have a loft in Brooklyn in Red Hook that we've been working on for a really cool client. So a lot of things going on at the moment. So you walk from the primary bedroom straight into our closet, which then turns into our bathroom. Again, just to double down on all the little secret nooks and crannies, this is a little secret compartment for all of our luggage and where we kind of house everything. When I open this door, our dog knows that we're traveling and he starts going mad crazy because he knows we're going to be traveling. So he doesn't like when this door gets opened very much. And then it gets hidden even again by this. So you walk right through this to our closets. It's a his and his closet. Everything is split down the middle and even. So my side, my husband's side, we have lots of short hanging for our suit jackets and blazers and pants and stuff like that. Lots of shoe storage. And then we even, I'll show you a little secret. We have great little jewelry drawers. We have little compartments for everything you could possibly imagine. I don't know who spends more time in here. I think we both enjoy clothing and fashion. I think we like the way that we feel when you're dressed really nicely. I don't think either one of us spends too much. We're not fussy people. It doesn't take us too long to get dressed in the morning. So from our primary bedroom, you actually have to walk through this closet to get to our primary bathroom. As I sort of said before, when we sort of took over the apartment, it was more or less one big space. And so we had to sort of carve out the different rooms and the bathrooms and where the kitchen was and all of that, one of which was this space and how much space we needed to allocate towards our closets. So this was all custom designed by myself and sort of figuring out how many shoes we wanted to display. You know, we have pull-out drawers for laundry. We have telescoping rods for, you know, when dry cleaning comes back from the dry cleaners, we can hang everything up when you're getting ready. So all these sort of little details are what we love to do in our projects as much as in my own personal home, because it's a real functioning kind of closet. My favorite thing about this house is my shower. I just love it. It's all gray travertine and it's very masculine. It's very, like, it's lit with LED lights. It's very beautiful space. And I feel like we travel a lot. We are all over the place. and we stay at nice hotels and that have nice showers, but every time I'm always like, I can't wait to get home and get to our own shower. I just love our bathroom and our shower. But I also really just love all the colors that we've done here, or the lack of colors that we've done here, because there's not that many people would say we don't do any color, but it's a lot of chocolate browns and neutrals. And to me, that's a very calming type of environment to be in, right? Like I feel like there's not that much stimulus other than texture and, you know, the feel of a beautiful mohair or something like that. So for us, it's a very calming space. And I love that we've been able to sort of achieve that calming aspect to our home, because New York City is a busy city. I mean, we're always busy, we're always out and about, we work really hard, but it's nice to come home to a space that feels very comforting. From the closet, we go straight into our primary bathroom, which is probably my favorite part of the house. So we have the water closet here. We have linen storage and extra toiletries and towels. It's a little messy, I'm not gonna show you in there. And then we have double vanities that kind of flank either side of this door, which is the glass door that goes into our shower, which I love. So there's actually 2 shower heads, a big beautiful niche in the back to sort of have your shampoos and whatnot. And then what I really love about the bathroom is this Slim Aarons photograph. So this actually means a lot to us. My husband and I got married on the back of a boat in Lake Como. And we got married on the back of a Riva boat, which is what's photographed here, a 1964 Riva. So we sort of saw this by Slim Aarons and sort of had to have it. And it even had the same baby blue leather that our boat had. So every time we sort of see this, it reminds me of our wedding and, you know, how special that was for us. You know, we have a big bench under the artwork for no real reason other than to just, again, sit on. We throw our clothes on here, extra towels and all that kind of stuff. And then we have a heated towel bar, which is it's just luxury. I just love it. It's nice to have a sort of a warm towel when you get out of the shower. So, you know, these are hot and they keep your towel pretty warm. We have all sort of little secret nooks and crannies. You know, one of the things that we actually do in our own projects and renovations is to make sure that vanities have electrical in the back of them to be able to, you know, have your blow dryers or anything that you want plugged in, so that you're not always like, you know, it's one of my pet peeves when you go to a hotel and you always have to plug in the, you know, the blow dryer and whatnot. So we try to think of those sort of luxury details for people when designing bathrooms, so that they don't have to, you know, it's a really easy kind of getting ready routine, I guess, in the morning. You know, we have medicine cabinets integrated into the wall. And what I think is really beautiful about, the most beautiful thing about this bathroom is the stone that we chose for the shower and vanities. It's this beautiful gray travertine. You know, it's a very masculine stone. It's a really beautiful stone. And I think it just adds that level of warmth that we love about being in this space. What's also really unique about this bathroom is we have a mirrored, what looks to be a mirrored portion of the wall, but it's actually a secret door that goes to the entryway. We actually had to have this door for egress and code purposes, but it actually works a lot. When I get up in the morning and take the dog out for his walk, I come straight from our bedroom through the closet and bathroom, straight out the front door. So this leads to our entryway. And this entryway sort of sets the tone for the whole apartment, right? From a material perspective, from a design perspective, I feel like it sort of touches all those notes. Here we have artwork, I don't know, we have terrazzo floors. It just feels very sort of like the terrazzo nods to Italy and that European feel, but in a very contemporary way. All of the dark millwork sets the tone for what you're going to see in the rest of the apartment, as well as the sort of applied moldings and the detailing there. So it sort of hits all of those architectural and design notes right here in the entryway. So one design trick that I would love to share is, I have a few. One is always picking the right color temperature lights. You know, 2700 Kelvin is a really soft, warm light. Anything higher than that, like 3000, tends to be a bit of a cold. I think for residential spaces, 2700 is is a beautiful temperature to pick. We always try to, like, when designing, especially when you're designing a space from scratch and you're building, we try to think about how our clients use the spaces, or at least anticipate using the spaces. So we hone into the details of, like, are they the kind of people that come in and they like to throw their keys and wallet somewhere, which is why we have this little secret drawer here for us, because it's something we don't like to see. I don't want to have it out, so I have a little secret drawer for that. So finding little spaces for all your needs is really important. What does home mean to me? Home to me is where you're most comfortable, and it's really where you can just kick back and relax. And I think that's really fun to design spaces for not only myself, but for other people, that spaces can be multi things, right? Like our home is meant for entertaining because we love entertaining, but at the same time, it is the most comfortable place to just kick up our feet and watch Netflix. And so I think home is where you're most comfortable.
Hi, Homeworthy. I've been waiting for you. My name is Ally. Welcome to my Ridgewood home. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Ally Doman. I am an interior designer, and we are in my home in Ridgewood, Queens. We found this apartment through my husband Evan's friend. She's a born and bred New Yorker. She's a real estate agent, so she knows her New York apartments. This was a family apartment, so I believe it was her great aunt who owned the space. It's one of those like iconic Ridgewood 6-family buildings, and we knew that we only had a day to decide because this is one of those New York miracles, because it's quite a nice size space and it is a rent stabilized building. So we got in very fast and just made the decision. We knew we had to have it. We definitely knew that the space really needed some TLC because the people that lived in this building prior to us, they had been living here for decades. They raised multiple generations here. And so, you know, they kind of let it slip a bit. I know it's not typical to renovate a rental, but because of the condition that I was in, it really felt like it was necessary. And of course, we got approval from the landlord. We added all new hardwood flooring. We even added like a second layer underneath the hardwood because Evan is a drummer. And so we're on the top floor, and we knew that if he wanted to, you know, make his music, practice his drums, we didn't want to bother our neighbors. So there was sort of another element to the renovation. We totally transformed the kitchen. We added new tiles. We added all new appliances. The same goes for the bathroom. We did keep some original things. The tub is original, and the kitchen backsplash. And of course, we kept all the gorgeous built-in cabinets that were here prior. You know, this is pre-war, so these date back to 1930s, around that era. So that charm is really what sold us on the space. So here we are in my living room. This is the first room that you see when you walk in, and I'm obsessed with my wall colors. It took me a while to decide which color I thought would be perfect for this space. I actually got the green couch first, so I knew that it had to go with green, and I wanted it to be rich. I wanted it to feel, you know, like this sort of perfect mid-tone, not too bright, not too pale. I tested out a ton of different Farrow and Ball colors, which is a British company, one of the oldest paint companies in the world. Their paint is lead-free. It's like way better for you than most paints. So I definitely wanted to upgrade my paint selection a bit. And of course, Farrow and Ball, it's just like iconic. So had to have it. So tested out quite a few different colors and settled on this one. It is called Dutch Orange, and I believe it now might be part of their archival collection, but it's actually cool. They've featured my home on their website to show off the color, so I'm quite proud of that. And I definitely feel like this is such an invigorating color. It's so alive. It makes me feel happy. It's like sunshine. I know that you've probably immediately saw this painting, which is one of my favorite purchases I've ever made. This is a recreation of a painting called The Joy of Life by Henri Matisse. And I first saw this painting, the real one, actually in Philadelphia, where I'm from, at the Barnes Museum. I saw this piece. It's massive, and it actually has its own room. And I just have this like beautiful, vivid memory of seeing that. And just took my breath away. Like, I think the title is so real, because for me, this is the joy of life. I literally feel like I'm the redhead girl in the middle. I just sort of am obsessed with like her pose. She's so relaxed. She's so sensual. She's so free. She's watching her friends gallivanting around this like mystical, colorful forest. And she's got her lady with her, and there's lovers and music. And it's just like the epitome of joy. You can literally see the color like right here. So I love that, you know, it picks up this art piece, and, you know, I want to show it off. This was like one of my first big girl purchases, shall we say. So these pillows, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with these. These are Cold Picnic, which is a Brooklyn-based design company. I really like to feature a lot of like local Brooklyn artists. So you'll see that throughout my home. But yeah, they're so fun. I love the colors. And I mean, come on, tell me that's not perfect with the walls. And then I have my little alligator one here. So cute. And yeah, I mean, red and green, classic combo. This blanket was actually gifted to me from one of my good friends. And this is also a Brooklyn-based designer. It's called Color, spelled CLR. And the designer makes these beautiful quilts and blankets. They're just so special. They're also reversible, so you can actually see that I could decide if I wanted to go, you know, that direction. I love this though, because this is has the blue in it, which you'll see in just a moment. Lots of blue in my space. I'll talk a little bit about my coffee table. I describe her as a lady because she looks like she's this sort of gorgeous, sensual, curvaceous woman just laying down. And that's also a running theme in my house. I also love that it mimics a lot of the shapes of the Matisse piece. And this is a biomorphic table. It's from around like 70s, 80s, like more of a postmodern piece. So I think it goes well with the shape of the mid-century sofa. My husband and I went to go pick it up, and I took off the glass part, nice and light. It's tempered glass. It's like indestructible. I have dropped 1,000 things on here and not even a scratch. It's insane. And then he had the bottom part, and so he sort of picked her up, and he kind of was just like, all right, honey. And I was like, oh, you have a damsel in distress. You're walking home with this sort of fabulous woman in your arms. So, I mean, it was just this funny visual that I think about. But yeah, I think also the fact that it's black is a really important thing to consider, because there is so much color that I love to find ways to use black to ground all the color, and specifically black and white. That is like my favorite color combination. I think that it's just chic. It's very New York. It's retro. So yeah, you're gonna see a lot of black and white as well. Let's see, we have this Jonathan Adler ruggable. I have 2 cats, so a ruggable was appropriate. Talk about a repeating motif in the home. I have a lot of like graphic, geometric stripes, squares, tiles. So just really sort of on theme in a way of like the retro New York City apartment. I love how it's sort of an ombre palette. So it goes from a darker blue into the lighter tones, and then obviously picks up some pretty reds and purples, which you'll also see in my space. So it's a nice sort of introduction to the palette of the home and brings it all together. So now I want to point your attention upward to our ceiling. We have this really cool, actually styrofoam ceiling that we just installed. It's just these sort of big tiles that you essentially put some glue on, stick them up. Of course, it takes a little bit of math because it has to be, you know, accurate, and you have to cut the pieces in the shape of the space. But I just had my friend do that for me, and obviously it's sort of meant to replicate a classic New York tin ceiling. So this is a really great way to cover a less than ideal ceiling. Ours was just a really basic sort of drop ceiling, square boxes. It definitely had a little bit of damage, some discoloration. So I'm really excited about this upgrade. And I love that it, you know, it sort of reflects a little bit of like I said, old New York, old world, Art Deco. So yeah, it's a great new addition. And I also love it for the backdrop of my chandelier. This is a Sputnik mid-century style custom piece that was something that I got as soon as I knew I was going to own a green sofa. They have this sort of crazy, wacky, almost like futuristic energy. I also think that they provide a lot of nice light because, you know, you get a ton of light bulbs that you can turn on and off or dim. We just sort of decide that we only want about half of them on, depending on kind of like the workflow, or if we, you know, want more mood lighting or task lighting. So yeah, I really like this piece. It's funky and it's loud. I like that. And then in the mid-century realm, I inherited this gorgeous media cabinet. It's stores our record player, which my husband Evan loves. He has a massive collection. You'll see that later. Oh, it's my cat toy. I was like, what's happening? I have my cat toy in here. So that's just a little like behind the scenes moment for you, that my kitty cats, they need their little bits of entertainment as well. So I'll put this somewhere else. So it opens up and, oh, we don't have any wine stored right now and it's a bit dusty, but you can store beautiful bottles of wine, booze. We are more like drinkers, not savers. So we don't really save the booze. But it's such a cool piece. And my mom actually, she held on to it for many years because she knew she wanted to pass it down to one of her kids when they had a real adult home. And I was the first one of us, so I got it. And I just love how it's simple. It doesn't have a lot of, you know, ornate details, bells and whistles. It's just like a really beautiful, clean, minimal piece with gorgeous reddish, you know, walnut wood. And it's also a perfect size. You know, obviously this nook has its limitations, but it was, yeah, it worked out perfectly. Also, this is kind of crazy. This wood on our speakers matches so flawlessly. And these were actually something that my husband had gotten ages ago. So there was no connection to my piece and then his speakers. So I love these. They almost feel like part of the set in a way. And I love this sort of linen fabric on it. And yeah, it's just a really like cool retro space. I love to show off this built-in, again, original pre-war feature that I'm so grateful to have. I decided to paint most of our built-ins black because, you know, deciding that I was going to keep some of the walls white, I knew that the black would really pop, and this is something that I, you know, really want to show off. So I think it was a pretty good choice to do that. I mean, you can see how stunning these little details are, so ornate, so just so, you know, so authentic to the building. So I love that. And yeah, you know, this is an eclectic bookshelf. I did sort of attempt to do like a color coding moment. That was definitely a pandemic in the house lockdown project, shall we say. These are just some really fun little like bubble shaped candle holders I got in Bushwick. The matching one is in my room. This is this stunning piece of pottery, ceramic. I mean, it's such a fabulous little sipping cup. I mean, I don't actually sip out of it, but I wish I did. Actually, I would feel chic with my espresso in the morning and this like fun gold details. But no, this is actually handmade by one of my friends. She's she owns her own business. It's called Domingo Ceramics. So look her up because her stuff is amazing. She actually makes this. I just got one of these as a gift from one of my clients, actually. And you can get an entire set of these. So they're like the perfect table scape for a party or tea or coffee. I love this one. Another lounging lady, go figure. So this is an old ashtray. Look at this. This girl's a little bit more active than my coffee table and my Matisse girl. She's got the whole, sort of can. And then look at this. She has her own little fan. So you put the butt in there. I love Judy Garland. I love Dorothy. Actually one of my favorite things about my time performing on the stage, and I still do, I go to cabarets, I'll sing at piano bars, I have like a whole Judy Garland set that I'll do. And I wrote a show, it was a one-woman play about Judy Garland and Dorothy, and so I performed that in London and New York. So I have a ton of little, Easter eggs, if you will, of Judy and Dorothy. That's one of them. I also have this really cool old Wizard of Oz children's book, one of the original ones my dad gave to me. So yeah, I definitely love to have all the women and people that inspire me. Here's my husband when he was younger. He's so cute. This is him. These are just some photos from our wedding with his best lady. We had a best lady instead of a best man. One of our biggest things that we did was we changed out the flooring. When we found it in its condition, the floors were like a really beaten up laminate tile. They were just they really needed work. So we decided that we were gonna just go big or go home. But one of the challenges of adding this floor was that the home was completely sloped. So we actually had to add a new subfloor, which definitely prolonged the renovation process. My husband is a drummer, so we also wanted to consider the fact that we were on the top floor, and if he wanted to practice or play music, we just wanted to make sure that our neighbors didn't want to, move out because we were loud. So we, by adding that extra layer, it was very useful. It's definitely an amazing feature to have brand new hardwood floors in a pre-war rental. Yeah, so my design style is definitely eclectic. I think that's the best way to describe it, because I really love to mix and match so many different design aesthetics and pieces from different eras. I take inspiration from so many different people who have so many unique styles. So, I brand my business as Colorful and Comfortable Homes by Ally Doman. And I think the colorful part definitely applies to this space. I originally, when we moved in, I lived with mostly white walls because I knew that I wanted to get a sense of the space and how it felt to me. Color is so much about how you want to feel, and you don't really have that information until you get to spend time in it. And of course, some people don't have the luxury of doing that, so that's when you hire me and I walk through the home and I get a sense of where the light is coming in, and we do a whole evaluation and really decide which colors work best for my clients and for the space. But yes, colorful and of course comfortable. Functionality is the most important thing. The home has to work for you and the way you want to live in it. If you're an entertainer, if you like to read, if you like to cook. So there's so many things to consider. But I also feel like People definitely recognize me with my use of, mid-century modern, the shapes, the organic textures, the, clean lines. And then I love to totally like do the opposite and then, infuse organic shapes and asymmetry and curves. And I think that combination is really what defines my style, and I think you'll see it a lot throughout my home. And right next to my living room is my kitchen. It's just really nice to have that dual space that functions so easily for our lifestyle. And I love how bright this kitchen is. We get such gorgeous natural light, so we hardly ever need to use our overhead. I also love actually the colors of the buildings. I like to sort of think about what is outside of the space as much as I think about inside. It really should all flow. It should resonate with each other. And so this building here, just in the center, is this really beautiful blue. And I actually think that the blue that I chose really coordinates with it. So that's just a fun little feature. When we renovated it, I think I 100% knew that I wanted the classic black and white checkerboard tile. That was really important to me. And, so from there, we just kind of did whatever. I mean, it's interesting is that before I really was in this sort of design career, I always had inclinations about what I liked and things that I thought worked or didn't. I picked these cabinets out and, mostly just because I wanted it to be very fresh and bright. And I also like that it's glossy because it feels a little bit more like modern and contemporary without it being too kitschy and too like retro, themey. So I think that there's something nice about that glossiness and just that simplicity. And then adding this hardware obviously kind of gives it a little bit of character. It's got these sort of cool like faceted details and they kind of pop against the white. And again, black and white, baby. This is like a nice black quartz top, great for cooking on, doing whatever, heat resistant. And then our appliances, we got, all new appliances. So we upgraded the appliances, which is fabulous. Nothing super fancy, but just like definitely a big step up from what was here before. It's a really perfectly functioning space. Espresso machine. This is like OG from Starbucks. I don't remember the year, but like I don't even think they make them anymore. But you can even see like their logo is kind of like it's sort of a different branding than what it is now. So that's kind of cool that we have a little like piece of Starbucks history. To me, this was so over the top. I couldn't believe I did this, but I actually bought, like little matching spice jars that have even like labels. And this was a project that I did probably while watching like The Real Housewives or something. But it honestly makes the space look so much more put together and cohesive. So, it was a nice upgrade from all the branded spices. So I really like this little picturesque spot. And of course, we really wanted to find ways that we could utilize the wall storage as much as possible. So, we added like these big shelves for pots and pans. We have another one over here. It's sort of like the retro kitchen, just the exposed stainless steel. So, I think it adds character. It kind of brings in another texture and something that obviously relates to a kitchen. So I like the open storage of it all. And then of course, as I mentioned, our built-in. So this is one of the built-ins, again, original, definitely needs a little bit of work. It's kind of, it's seen a couple years, but this is such a, again, a beautiful addition to the space. And something that we did to cater to our kitty cats in the house that also live here full time, we actually opened up the base of this cabinet. So it used to have a door. We took the door off. We had to do a little bit of cutting, and we just got a litter robot machine. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing, but I will say it's been kind of the perfect solution because the cats have almost like a little privacy. And you know, it's neutral, it's white, it's kind of looks high tech. So I don't know, I'm pretty proud of that. And I think it's yeah, a great way to hide, you know, ugly cat stuff. Oh, and then of course, how could I forget? This is one of my favorite features that really connects the living room to the kitchen. This was a really fun addition, and this is a vintage like little metal chain piece. This kind of feels a little bit like grandma's house, but I love it for that. And it's massive, so we can fit a ton of things. I don't always have like beautiful color-coded fruits in here. That's just for you guys today. It's usually like bread and, you know, all this stuff, but you know, we gotta play it up. And there is some fake fruit as well. Actually, the fake fruit, you can definitely tell which is fake and which is real. I mean, I'm sorry, it doesn't really look, it's not the best replica, shall we say, but you know, it's a little fun touch to the space. So I wanted to draw your attention to this area because these are such incredible photographs that we purchased. It was actually part of a fundraiser during COVID. It was raising money for Elmhurst Hospital during, like, it was one of kind of the worst, you know, most chaotic hospitals during the time. So they really wanted to, you know, raise awareness, raise money. And so incredible photographers not donated, but, you know, sold their work for like literally like a tenth, an eighth of the price. So it was an opportunity for people that really wanted to own like incredible photography. It gave them that chance. So we definitely ran with it. We got 2 pieces. I love this piece. This is by a New York photographer called Vincent van du Vanguard. It's just such a beautiful like background, and I love the dress and how it's cascading. And then this is really fun. This is by a photographer called Matt Jones. And it's like this couple kind of snuggling at the Guggenheim, which I feel like this is something I would do with my husband. I like PDA. He doesn't as much, but anyway, it just resonated with me. So I love these pieces and the fact that we were able to, you know, get such fine art for a good cause. Yeah, and then I wanted to, just behind me, talk about this really like very perfectly straight door frame. Just kidding. I mean, look at this. This is a perfect example of what I was talking about with the sloping of our home. So a lot of old homes, they're not even at all. They have obviously wear and tear over the years, the weather changing, whatever it may be, humidity, water. And so yeah, this is an example of one of the fun little quirks of living in a pre-war space. And, you know, not necessarily something that we were like, oh, we must fix this, because I do feel like it really gives it character. So yeah, there's a couple of those little like uneven moments. And then, oh, this is for my kitty cat, Ginger. This is actually a very fancy custom cat hammock. We got this. Oh, she's got a couple little, again, all the little toys for the babies. But hopefully no real mice in the house, just only fake mice allowed, please. This is our little bistro area, which I think is a really cute and like well-sized dining space. I will admit that we don't really use it for dining as much. We're more of a coffee table on the floor couple, but you know, it's great for parties or when we have groceries, we need to put something down. But you know, adding again this sort of organic material like marble really helps elevate this space, make it give it a little bit more of like a contemporary feel. And then the ghost chairs are vintage. I got these from Kaya, they're Cartel. I think it's really useful to use acrylic and things that don't have as much of a, heavy footprint when you're designing a smaller space because, yeah, they're like see-through. So they're functional, but they're, they might as well be invisible. So, yeah, I'm happy with this little area. There's a couple challenges with railroad apartments. I think the fact that it's just one shot, right? So you see the entire space in any room. So you need to make sure that the rooms feel cohesive and connected. So you do have to think about the space almost as like one big room. It essentially is that. It's one big hallway. And I think the other thing is that, it doesn't get as much light as say some other spaces in the city because those middle rooms, yes, I'm lucky enough that we do have a window in every one of those middle rooms, but there is a building directly, connected to ours, so we don't get a ton of light. So finding ways to make the space feel bright and energetic throughout the day is a challenge. And of course, I would say the fact that we have 0 closets, like literally not one closet is in this house. And we do have 3 built-ins that were original to the building, and they have nice, deep drawers, but definitely not a replacement for a closet. So we're constantly, it's like a big game of Tetris in this house. Like we are, discovering new ways to find storage and, constantly having to go through everything. I mean, before you guys came here, I was running around like a mad woman trying to, get all my things out of the corners. And so I think storage for sure is a challenge, but I mean, most New Yorkers would agree with me. Welcome to my Diva room. Now, some of you may say, Ally, why do you need this much space for all of your things? And it's because I have a lot of things, and I also love to show them off because I love clothes, I love fashion, I love, color and prints. Today I'm a little bit more simple and a little bit more neutral, let the home speak for itself. But yeah, I mean, sort of like, I just love to kind of wear, bold outfits, bold prints, lots of texture. We have some beautiful, like my grandmother's old furs, and it's almost that time of year. I cannot wait. It's just a really special thing to be able to like see your stuff all in one place. And obviously if, you want to color code it, go for it. I did because it's actually like very convenient when choosing an outfit. I also love like supporting a lot of, local New York designers. One of my favorites is, her name is Tyler McGillivray. She's a Brooklyn-based designer. I'll show you a couple of my pieces that I have from her. Oh, these are some of my favorite pieces. Look at this. Stunning. The details, the color, the shape. Love that piece. I probably have worn it like maybe twice, but it's definitely calls for a specific occasion. I also collect a lot of vintage clothing, obviously vintage furniture, vintage clothing. So yeah, some of my favorite items are vintage. This is like a beautiful raincoat that I got. It's such a unique color. It's like a periwinkle-esque. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how to describe this color, but it's so cool. It's London Fog, which is just like a really iconic brand. So I love that trench. I also love vintage purses. This is another one that is so gorgeous. I got this in New York on a really successful day of shopping. It's just such a statement. Actually, that would look very good with this outfit. Looks good with everything. Again, black and white. I don't know what else to tell you. Look at this. Matching wallet. So cute. Yeah, this is one of my best purchases. So I could go on and on really, because I have so many fun things that I love to show off, but I won't. And yeah, and then just sort of moving on to the color, the palette, the concept of this style, this design. I think I wanted something that felt very boudoir, you know, like there's sort of like something that would be in an old Hollywood movie. And this is also a Farrow and Ball color. It's called Crimson Red. And it's interesting that it's described as red, because to me it reads much more like mauve, sort of more of like a dusty rose, dusty pink. It does look more red at night, so when the natural light is gone, it definitely glows a little bit more and has that reddish tone, like a brownish red. So it's a really transformative color, and I love colors that like take on different you know, shapes and you know, palettes throughout the day. So I think that's really, really fun. I knew I wanted to color drench this room, and I also knew that the color really had to, you know, make sense with the other room that's attached to it, because as we just, you know, discussed, this is just essentially one long hallway. So it had to flow nicely. In that same vein, I must show you my lipstick mirror. Kind of scooch around here. It is so iconic, this silhouette. It's so diva, it's glam, definitely sort of part of that, you know, 60s, 70s era, and it has storage. It's a bit messy, don't judge me. Oh my gosh, it is quite messy, but that's okay. I have so much jewelry too. I had my own jewelry business at one point, so I still have tons of pieces from that. But yeah, it's pretty rare to find a lipstick mirror with this much storage. So this was like a must-have. You can see it kind of like goes like that. It's just so unique. I to this day, I haven't seen one with storage. I found this from Dobbin Street Co-op, which is a really awesome vintage secondhand store. They have 2 locations, one in Williamsburg, one in Greenpoint. So yeah, they posted this online, and I immediately was like, I think I was the first person to reach out. I was like, it's mine. So yeah, this is one of my pride and joy possessions. In the same vein as all the lounging, glamorous ladies of our home and our art and decor, I incorporated this Matisse lady, and I thought it was a nice nod to the piece that's in the living room. And I knew that I wanted there to be something large scale and artful here, but of course, being that it's like this long hallway, we have the doors, double doors, so I knew that, you know, putting some kind of like clunkier art piece would be tricky, because I wouldn't want it to get, you know, damaged with the doors opening and closing. So I was trying to get creative, and again, this was a pandemic project. So with these gorgeous moldings, I thought, oh my gosh, this is kind of perfect to make like a large scale art piece that's already attached to the room. So I spent days using like the Robin Buff gold leaf and painting. I have one here, and then I have another one to the right of it. And this definitely was a labor of love, to say the least. I feel as though it's worth talking about this vanity. I really don't know the history of this vanity. I don't know what era it's from. I found it secondhand. But I was obsessed with so many of the little details, like the scalloping detail here. If you look, I love that wave. It really flows well with like the Matisse pieces. I found this mermaid, another one of my gorgeous sensual women. This I found with my friend. We were out thrifting, and I had to have her. She has this dolphin. She's got a whole little under the sea world. Q and Ariel, right? Little Mermaid. Yeah, I mean, also obviously finding a piece that has a lot of storage. I'm not going to open these because well, I don't know. Maybe it's not a mess. We'll see. Oh, it's a mess. No, we're not doing it. Yeah, so this is a really cool vanity. Definitely something when I've taken photos of this room, I see this exact sort of shot on Pinterest a lot. People really like this this shot specifically because I think it's very, like I said, very glamorous. And I added these shelves. I think that obviously, you know, wanting to utilize the wall space as much as I could, it meant just building up, right? Not out, because I don't have a lot of depth at my advantage. So I think this was a really important decision, and you know, just painting it, color drenching, you know, install the shelves, paint them. They almost have like a built-in feel, and obviously you have to measure and make sure that everything is going to fit all of your items, so that's always a good thing to note. But yeah, I love being able to see a lot of my fun shoes. These are kind of more my party shoe. These, I want to show you again, sort of on my, it's my best friend Betty and I at her wedding. I was her maid of honor. But this bag was a gift from one of my other BFFs, Emily. This was my wedding invitation. This was the font, and this is what it said on it. This was kind of like the running theme, very like Shakespearean, Renaissance woman of me. But I was gifted this gorgeous bag. She had her friend customize that, and then if you open it, it says, "Till death do us part," and that's when we got married. And this also again was part of my wedding invitation, so this is really special. I love this bag, and this also looks good with my outfit. I love a pop of red. So yeah, that's a piece that I definitely cherish. Now, a glowy light fixture is really important in a space that you want to feel beautiful. You want warm lighting to really like set a nice tone for your makeup and your getting ready sessions. So I thought that this paper light was a beautiful statement, and again, it sort of balances out a lot of like the glamorous elements of the space. I think adding organic natural textures like paper and, you know, like the cowhide and anything that just sort of can really ground the room is important. So I think this light is, you know, I mean, they're very popular. They're popular for a reason. I honestly feel like having this bamboo room divider as a window treatment is kind of a cool idea, because there is some privacy that you get. B, you still get light coming in, so it doesn't darken the room. And also, I think it's just really cool to kind of create, yeah, like another sort of pattern, another sort of decorative element that maybe you wouldn't get otherwise. So this is like a really fun way to bring in some graphic cool details. This is obviously like a floral pattern, and I really like the way that the green lives in the space, and I also like the sound. ASMR, Homeworthy edition. In the same vein as the flowers that you see in the window treatment, we have my stunning Hollywood Regency lamp. This is a classic lotus flower piece, straight from the sort of Hollywood Regency Art Deco era. I love the light that it gives off. It's so feminine. It's like, you know, really pops in this room. And I think it's definitely like one of the statements of the space. I love the bright gold. It's just perfect for a diva room. I started posting on Instagram a ton of, you know, little things I was doing in my home. My friends were all stuck at home, you know, bored during COVID, and so they were really into my content. And then from there, some friends who had moved apartments, and they were, like I said, it was the sort of pandemic time, so some people got their dream homes during that, you know, less than ideal time, and they wanted somebody to help them. So it just almost found me, you know. People asked me to come over to design. I charged them a little bit because I was like, is this what I'm doing? Is this my new job? But I loved it. I was obsessed with it. It was like this treasure hunt. It was like this adult treasure hunt, you know, finding all the puzzle pieces to make this like beautiful larger picture. And you know, the best part is that it's somebody's home. You know, it's so personal, and it means so much to me that people trust me with that. And I love that I can leave a little piece of me in people's spaces. So that's how I got into it. I started my own business called Doman Decors. You can find me on Instagram at Doman Decors, or my website. I've been, you know, very blessed and lucky that the business is growing every single year. I started it, I believe, in 2021 or 2. So it's been, you know, it's been a few years, and it's a full-time job, and I love it. Now I'm gonna show you my husband's music studio, office, and his personal dressing room. So we're super lucky to have this really functional space. Obviously, as you can see, Evan is a musician. He's a drummer. He also makes a lot of music. So this room really had to check a lot of boxes. And we also managed to put all of his things in this wardrobe, which, yes, it is an IKEA PAX wardrobe that we sort of blinged out, if you will, with some wallpaper. So I think it's cool to kind of use you know, decals wallpaper to really customize a somewhat, you know, basic piece. I picked this wallpaper, again, it's very graphic, it fits with the tiling and the geometry of the home, and I also think that it's cool because a lot of the black squares are represented here in the small scale, and then you get to see a lot of those squares throughout the walls and the ceiling. And at first when he told me he had to totally treat this room, I was like, oh, what is this gonna look like? I don't want all this like ugly eyesore panels up. But I mean, I will say, I think the way he did it, it definitely has a little bit more of a point of view. It's not just so random. So I'm not mad about it. And again, it's really about the functionality, as I mentioned. I think again, this room just works for him. It's soundproofed, and yeah, and he actually gets a ton of storage. I want to point out this beautiful painting that we're so lucky to have, because it's by a very famous artist named Wilson McLean, who also is in Evan's family. So he is you know, a very like world famous artist. He's done paintings, illustrations for Time Magazine, Sports Illustrated. He's amazing. He's actually in the Illustration Hall of Fame. So it's incredible that we get to have one of his pieces. And this is a painting of a famous blues musician named Muddy Waters. And Wilson did a whole series of famous jazz blues musicians, which is kind of perfect because Evan grew up playing jazz. He loves jazz and blues. So it was, you know, kismet that he was able to get one of these pieces in his collection. And I love the colors that are here. Obviously, this sort of blues and oranges. And even if you notice, like this is very close to the crimson red that I have in my my dressing room. So I'm actually just noticing that right now. Like sometimes I don't even realize why I do the things I do. And then I look closely and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like living room, sort of kitchen, diva room. Oh, look at that. We have pinstripe. I mean, you know. But anyway, I think this is just brilliant. And of course we need to have a little bit of a downlight shining on it so that it's really highlighted. I think, like, you know, if you can find ways to highlight artwork and things that are important, you should. And in the world of all the beautiful art that we have from Evan's side of the family, this is a painting that was actually done by Evan's grandmother, Joan, and it's of his mother, Nancy. So it's got this really lovely history of all the women that he adores. And again, the running theme of all the ladies in our home. It's super cool that we get to have his mom featured. This is like a photo of her when she was younger, but I love all the colors. And obviously, you know, his grandma and his mother, they're both amazing artists. His mother's an incredible artist. I wish we had some of her pieces in here, but we have some in our home upstate. But anyway, this is also kind of a little fun DIY thing I want to mention, because I knew I wanted to have something along this wardrobe since it's such like a white blank canvas. And again, you're sort of transitioning from each room, so all the different angles are reflected. But so instead of drilling into this wardrobe, I actually hung it with a piece of rope, and I have like a paperweight that's just sitting right up on top of the wardrobe. And I could not believe how sturdy it is. I felt like I was a genius when I did that, because you know, it was just sort of a great solution. And now we get this we get to look at this gorgeous piece every day when we wake up. The best thing about this apartment, I just think I'm so lucky that I get these gorgeous, you know, New York characteristics, like the picture box moldings. I mean, all the trim, the door frames, you know, there's so many stunning details that you just can't really, I mean, of course you can replicate, but it's just nothing like the original. So I think those details are just like, it's priceless, and it makes an interior pop in such a different way than, you know, if you do live in sort of a new build that's just like nice white, you know, clean walls. Our walls have lived a life. They have a lot of stories. I think they definitely are not perfect, but I would take imperfect walls any day if it means I get to have these lovely details. My favorite room in the home, oh my gosh, it's hard to choose because they all work well for different purposes. I think I'm gonna say my bedroom. Blue is my favorite color to use in interior design, and even before I knew anything about interior design, I always gravitated towards blue rooms. The color that is in my bedroom was actually the only color that I chose for the whole house when we were renovating it. I knew that I wanted it white, as I mentioned, but then that blue just stood out to me, and I had this like spiritual connection with it. It's just the perfect mid-tone blue. It's serene, but it's also a little bit energetic because of the undertones. I love how cozy the space is. My cats love the space, so they're always cuddled up in the bedroom, and I'm just like, I love to be horizontal and sleep. So for that reason, I'm gonna say the bedroom. And now directly next to Evan's studio is our bedroom. And this is my favorite room in the house. It is so serene. The blue is just right, in my opinion. It's got the perfect sort of undertone. It's got a little bit of vibrancy, but it's also, again, very soothing, very peaceful. When it's dark in here and it's just sort of lit by like our fixture and some, you know, lamps and pendants, it's just really glowy and moody. So I think it really sets the tone for unwinding after a long day. And what's funny is, you know, I knew that I had to have this color. Like this specific blue it's called Blue Daisy from Benjamin Moore. And this was, again, like before I really knew a lot about interior design. I just kind of knew what I liked and knew what I didn't like, and had kind of a particular taste. But I really was drawn to this color, and I think that initially we had only put it on one wall just to kind of test it out. And throughout the years, I just started putting it on every wall. I painted the ceiling not too long ago. That's been a great addition. Really just making it feel like you're engulfed in this lovely rich tone. And this room, I feel like definitely steps away from like the mid-century of it all. It's way more like boho and a little bit more like there's some, you know, Asian influences, and obviously has a lot of art of lovely ladies, as you know, I'm obsessed with. And, you know, taking sort of some pieces that are vintage, also mixed with some more contemporary, is also kind of happening in here. It's definitely mostly vintage though. I really love this this piece. It's we actually found this on the street. Funny enough, we have a few pieces in here that are street finds, and you can ask any New Yorker, but I feel like it's pretty common to find really cool treasures on the street of New York. Well, I just wanted to mention that I'm obsessed with peacock feathers. This is kind of a new thing that I discovered. I love how tall they are. I love that like they just have this like feathered effect, and you know, this color is just like almost neon. It's so beautiful. The fact that this is like comes straight from nature is it's just like mind-blowing sometimes when I think about it. So yeah, I definitely try to put like peacock feathers around spaces as often as I can. And then just behind me, this is Mark Rothko. This is a piece that was just secondhand, but I really love the purple and the pink tones that are against the blue. I think it really, the combination is really, really pretty. And you'll notice that like I'm not very precious about like sticking to one metal or sticking to one wood tone. I really think it's important to like mix and match. I think that, you know, that's how a space really feels curated, collected. And when things are too matchy, I just find that it's, yeah, it can just sort of look like a showroom. So I'm definitely not afraid to do that, and you'll see that the mixing throughout this room specifically. So as I mentioned, borrowing some Asian influences, I found this gorgeous room divider, another street find. Actually, Evan found this, so this was one of his treasures. And I think that, you know, in a railroad home, it can be quite awkward when you're decorating this specific corner, because this is also an entrance and exit. So the door just behind it. We don't use that one, so it is usually, you know, locked up, but I think obviously you don't want to have like a chair or like a storage piece blocking this. So what do? Well, just get creative, find something that's easy to move. A lot of times we're just storing a lot of stuff under here. So this is like our hub for extra things. I had to really organize that to show you this lovely view. So I'm glad that I did it, because I'm quite proud of myself right now. Very decluttered. And then moving on, you know, I love this cabinet. This is something that I think this like mango wood with this really unique color and graining is so beautiful. We have this like cool sort of hammered brass that just really pops against the wood. This was also a secondhand piece, and perfect for all of our blankets and things like that. And then if you'll look up, you'll see, well, I'm very proud of this bouquet. I just made this, and once again, see the feather details. And I love the purple, purple, blue, and green. Mwah. So good. Anyway, but if you can look past my fabulous bouquet, this is another piece that has some relationship to Evan's family, because this is actually of Evan's grandmother, the same woman that painted the piece of his mother. This is her posing, and this was done by an artist. His name is Millard. I don't know a lot about him, but I love this because I love this sort of like shadowing and her silhouette, and she's very stoic yet pleasant. So it's kind of it's quite a neutral portrait. I think it's a good one to wake up to. And just be reminded of all the beautiful women that are in Evan's family. And I also love the carving details of this frame. This came with the piece. It's just so unique. I really have never seen anything quite like it. So a really special feature. I cannot leave out this pillar, side table, whatever you want to call it. This is so iconic. This is something that I also got in that same trip to Dobbin Street Co-op. And this is just this really like cool wood piece that has these intricate carvings. And it's very Grecian, Roman inspired. I really don't know the history of it, and I wish I did, because I find it so fascinating that it's just like the detailing is so clear. But yeah, this was also a huge, exciting vintage find for me, because I think it just works so well in this space, and especially because it's like a white ivory color, it really stands out. So, but this is actually like mostly of men, and of course I had to balance out the genders by placing a naked woman on top of it. My Matisse, right? Sort of the callback to that wallpaper that you saw in my bedroom. So lots of motifs in this house, lots of little Easter eggs. And then moving on, this is my desk area. I don't really sit at this desk that much. It's definitely more used for storage, my nightstand, but you know, I think eventually I'm gonna probably upgrade and just put like a larger, taller cabinet here, because I have a lot of samples that come in and I work from home, so definitely need more storage here. But this is great for now. You know, I always like to put a little bit of a fuzzy pad on the chair. So the cats like that too, and it's very soft and adds a nice texture. And then, of course, you know, moving on to just the main focal point, which is the bed. It's very simple. I definitely didn't really want any kind of like big bed frame. I actually used to have a headboard here. And I always felt like there was something that wasn't quite right with the space. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was just something about the bed and the headboard, and it felt very like clunky. And I realized that maybe what the issue was that like this bump out here, right? A lot of these old buildings have these. A lot of times they used to be fireplaces, or, you know, you don't know what's behind there. We never tried to look, but I don't want to ruin this wall because we get this stunning trim. But I realized that this bump out was sort of a natural headboard. So as soon as I took away the headboard, I was like, that's it. That was what I was doing wrong here. And it just means you have to have like a lot of extra pillows and things like that when you're sort of relaxing. But we're definitely not short of pillows in this house. And I think that, yeah, I think that it's like also a lovely way to showcase a piece of art, because you don't have like the headboard as the sort of focal point. This is another lady. Oh, she's definitely kind of a different lady. She's obviously naked, so it still has that like sensuality, but I also think that she's a little bit more solemn, maybe has gone through something. There's something sort of solemn in her pose, but yet it doesn't make me upset. It's just it's sort of something like, what is she thinking? What's the mystery? What's her secret? What did she go through? So I love that, and I found this when I was thrifting in Williamsburg. So this is one of my first pieces that I found. And this is a small thing, but I just love the way her eyeshadow, or maybe it's not makeup, maybe it's just what the artist chose to do to highlight her eyes. But I love that it's just a subtle little speck of blue, just to bring it all together. Definitely like to keep the bedding simple. I think, you know, the walls and the pieces are really the standout. items of the home. So the bedding is just very neutral. This is like a tencel fabric, so it's almost like a very breathable, soft, silky texture. But I love this pillow. This is a handmade piece made in Brooklyn. Gotta support my Brooklyn artists. I love the colors here. You can see how nicely it goes with the walls. And again, this sort of floral motif, I think, is something I love to highlight. Just bringing in nature. And yeah, her name is, the company is called Loo Plush, Looplush. Loo Plush. They make these just really cool, like uniquely shaped pillows. So I'm happy to rock this right in the center. And this brings me to where my cat is so stunningly posed. This is, hi baby. Oh, I told you the cats love this room. She's being so cute. Look at her. She's a ham. She's kind of like upstaging me. Are you upstaging mommy? Are you upstaging mommy? You're so cute. This antique steamer trunk is from a Victorian era, so it's really cool to have a piece like that in this room. I also am obsessed with these details. This is like a floral, I think it's almost like, you can kind of tell, but it's like almost like a wallpaper. There's some kind of a vinyl. If you open it up, I'm not going to because she's looking so cute right now, but the same wallpaper is inside. So that was a really cool detail that I just was gravitating towards when I purchased it. And I feel like this is sort of like my grown-up dress-up box. I don't know if anyone else, when they were kids playing dress-up, they had like a big trunk that they put all their like tutus in and fancy outfits, but that's what's going on inside here. So if I were to open this, it'd be like an explosion of tulle. But anyway, I think trunks are a really chic way to bring in like storage that's sort of different from a cabinet or a wardrobe. This is a really cool mirror that I had somebody hand make for me. I actually found this artist on Etsy, which is such an amazing resource to find artisanal and like really custom pieces, whether it be mirrors, furniture. I use Etsy for like literally everything, bedding, window treatments, like you name it, vintage, the best vintage. But yeah, this is such a cool mirror. I think finding something to put in between two windows can always be a little bit of a challenge, and this just is the perfect size. And I think using organic shapes to really make the space feel soft and inviting is important. And I love that this is like what you see right when you walk in. And I think it's also just important to utilize mirrors as much as you can, especially in a railroad or in a place where, you know, you want to make look bigger. I mean, it's obvious, right? You get like the reflection going, and it's also really cool to be able to see like different elements and vignettes of the room through the mirror. Like right now, what I'm looking at is like my bouquet and the art. So I think that mirrors are a really cool way to like tell the story of the space. Living in New York, there's so much chaos. You know, you step out of your front door and you have no idea what the day is gonna bring you. It can be loud, it can be smelly, it can be a perfect, beautiful fall day. You can meet new people, but like I said, it can be chaos. And so for me, home is that moment when you open the door after a long day, your feet hurt, your bag's heavy, and you just drop your stuff down. It smells the way you want it to smell. It looks the way you want it to look. It's like a big, warm hug, and you know, it's a place that you can just, I mean, I immediately put on my PJs when I get home and I plop on the couch. It's just my happy place. It's my, you know, my comfort. You know, seeing my husband, big hug when I get home. My kitties run up to me. You know, hopefully some food is being cooked. Some flowers are being styled, and You know, it's just the place where you can be yourself and be chill and relax.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.